Lin Fan was crowded in a crowded subway car, his nose filled with the smell of sweat and cheap perfume, and boring short videos were playing on the screen of his mobile phone. The white-collar workers around me were swiping their phones with their heads down. Some were complaining about the stock market, while others were showing off their newly purchased electric cars. Everything was as numb as usual. Suddenly, a loud thunderous sound came from above the head, the carriage shook violently, and everyone looked up. What the hell? There was an earthquake. Look at the sky. The sky is split open. Through the car window, Lin Fan's eyes widened and he saw the blue sky tearing apart like broken glass, and countless purple-black cracks spreading like living creatures crawling on the skin. Immediately afterwards, dense blue light spots spewed out from the cracks, hitting the ground like a torrential rain. After those light spots hit the ground, they instantly exploded into mist, filling the streets. Screams broke out. The first infected person was a young mother pushing a stroller. After inhaling the mist, her body twitched, veins quickly bulged on her skin, and her eyes turned white and turned blood red. The stroller overturned, and she threw herself at the pedestrian on the roadside, tearing the other person's throat with her teeth. Blood spattered on the asphalt road, and the fishy sweet taste rushed straight into her nose. Passers-by backed away in horror, and one screamed, "Monster!" She turned into a monster. The subway braked suddenly, and Lin Fan was thrown forward. His forehead hit the armrest of the seat, and hot blood flowed down his brow bone. He staggered up, pushed through the crowd, and rushed to the car door. The outside of the carriage is already a hell, the infected person's limbs are twisted, the bones are elongated with rattling sounds, the nails turn into black hooks, and they roar like beasts. They pounced on the living people, biting and devouring them. Broken limbs and remains were scattered on the ground, and the air was filled with rusty blood and the stench of decay. Run! Leave them alone. A man in a suit pushed Lin Fan away and rushed out of the car first, but was knocked down by a mutated dog that fell from the sky. The dog was originally a stray dog on the roadside. Now its body has swollen twice as much, and its saliva is dripping like acid, corroding the ground and making a sizzling sound. It bit the man in a suit's spine with one bite, and the sound of bone cracking was clear and piercing. The survivors around him saw this scene, their faces were as pale as paper, some collapsed on the ground, and the smell of incontinent urine was mixed into the blood. Lin Fan's heart was pounding and his legs were weak, but he gritted his teeth and turned around, running wildly along the collapsed street. Behind him, the roars of the monsters came like a tide, the glass of the high-rise building shattered, and the fragments fell like rain, slicing his arm and causing pain like fire. Vehicles on the street collided into a sea of fire, and thick smoke choked his nose. He caught a glimpse of a girl surrounded by 3 monsters. She cried out, "Save me! Someone come and save me!" But no one dared to stop. A passing strong man tried to save the beauty heroically, but was pierced through the chest by the monster's claws. His heart was still beating and thrown out of the body. The girl was also torn apart while screaming. Despair flooded Lin Fan like a tide. He rushed into an alley and heard the supermarket's automatic door still buzzing, not completely destroyed. He rushed in, pulled down the iron curtain door with his backhand, and leaned against the shelf, panting. The lights in the supermarket were dim and the shelves were half empty, obviously they had been looted. But there were also a few expired cans, a rusty fire axe, and bottles of mineral water in the corner. Survive, at least survive first. Lin Fan muttered to himself, grabbed the axe, and smashed open the safe behind the cashier. Inside was an old-fashioned revolver with only 3 bullets. He gulped down the water and filled his backpack. Just as he took a breath, there was a scraping sound outside the iron curtain door. Boom! Boom! The monster is coming. The first one was a mutated security guard, with half of his face melted into rotten flesh, exposing his bones. His single blood-red eye stared at the crack in the door, his claws clawed at the iron curtain, and sparks flew everywhere. Lin Fan gripped the axe tightly, his heart beating wildly. Get away. You beast. He yanked the corner of the iron curtain, and the axe came out, hitting the monster in the head. The axe blade embedded in the skull, making a wet cracking sound, black blood splattered, and the fishy stench hit your nostrils. The monster twitched and fell to the ground, and the dust on the surrounding shelves was shaken off. Lin Fan pulled out the axe and trembled all over. Killing for the first time made his stomach churn. But more monsters come. 5 or 6 of them squeezed in through the cracks in the door. There were mutated children dragging their broken legs and crawling around, making shrill screams. There were swollen fat monsters with split belly and intestines leaking out, but they were still squirming forward. Lin Fan fired, and the first shot exploded one of its heads, causing the brains to scatter on the wall like graffiti. The second shot pierced the fat man's eye, and it fell to the ground, crushing the shelves, and the cans rolled to the floor. Come on. You monsters. Lin Fan roared, swinging his axe and cutting off the arm of a child monster. The severed limb was still twitching. His nails scratched his calf, tearing a bloody gash. The pain was as severe as an electric shock. He retreated and leaned against the wall. The monsters were approaching, their roars were deafening, and their saliva dripped onto the floor and corroded into smoke. The third bullet missed. The swing of the axe gradually slowed down, and Lin Fan ran out of energy. A monster pounced on him, its claws pierced his shoulder, and the sound of bones cracking was heard. He screamed and stabbed the monster's eye socket with his backhand, but another one bit its neck. Blood surged like a fountain, vision blurred, and the world turned blood red. The darkness of death swallows everything. Lin Fan felt like his consciousness was falling into an endless abyss. Ding, next stop, Century Square Station. The familiar subway announcement sounded. Lin Fan suddenly opened his eyes and found that he was still sitting in the carriage, and the short video was still on the screen of his mobile phone. The white-collar workers around them lowered their heads and refreshed their screens. Everything remained the same. A dream? No, impossible. The loud sound of the sky splitting was heard again. Blue light spots fell like rain. Lin Fan's heart almost stopped. Is this a do-over? He remembers everything. Monsters, supermarkets, and the pain of death are all vivid in my mind. This is not a dream, this is time going back. He pushed through the crowd and rushed out of the car, this time heading straight to the alley to avoid the man in the suit who would be jumped by the dog. When the street collapsed, he had already rushed into the supermarket. Before pulling down the iron curtain, he glanced outside. The girl was still crying, but this time he didn't stop and stepped in directly. In the supermarket, he knew the ropes well and went straight to the corner for cans and axes. He even broke open the safe in advance and grabbed the revolver to check. It was full of 3 rounds of bullets. The cycle resets 24 hours every time you die, and retains your memory. He murmured, and countless fragments flashed through his mind: alien viruses, meteorite rain, out-of-control alien experiments triggering a global doomsday. There are many human fortresses with very few survivors. Human nature has collapsed. Stealing supplies and killing fellow humans has become the norm. The monster scratches the door again. This time, Lin Fan sneered, "Come on, I know your weaknesses." The iron curtain opened, and his first axe hit the security monster's knee accurately. Hearing the sound of bones shattering, it knelt down. He hit the head with an axe, and black blood spurted out, splashing onto nearby shelves. A mutated child monster that had just rushed and witnessed this scene, and its movements froze slightly, as if it felt the despair of its kind. Lin Fan didn't give it a chance. The revolver roared, the bullet penetrated its chest, and its heart shattered and spurted blood. The fat monster rushed towards him, but Lin Fan dodged sideways, causing it to hit the shelf. The can fell down and pinned half of its body. He stepped on its neck and slowly pierced the eye socket with the axe, feeling the hot and moist resistance. "Last time you bit me, it's your turn this time." The monster twitched and let out a gurgling whine, and the blood around it became thicker, mixed with the rotten smell of intestines. Within 5 minutes, monster corpses piled up like a hill. Lin Fan panted and wiped the axe blade, with only scratches on his body. He raided the supermarket, a dozen cans, a box of water bottles, and even a medical kit to sew up wounds. The streets outside were quieter, but he knew the wave of monsters was coming. Suddenly, the old supermarket radio buzzed, and the noise was harsh. Attention survivors. Prophecy scroll. 0 point of Doomsday. The space capsule is activated. Restart the curse. The back warehouse of the supermarket. Lin Fan's pupils shrank suddenly. Prophecy scroll. What is that? The sound of the radio suddenly stopped, leaving only dead silence. Outside the iron curtain, a low roar came from the distance, and the ground trembled slightly. The monster wave is approaching. He gripped the axe tightly and stared at the rear barn door, his heart racing. This scroll may be the key to breaking the cycle. But outside the door, the shadows of hundreds of monsters were reflected on the iron curtain, their claws scraping like a torrential downpour. The supermarket shook, shelves fell over, and dust blew into our faces. It came so fast. Lin Fan gritted his teeth, slung his backpack over his shoulders, and rushed to the back room. Behind the door, is there life or a bigger trap? Lin Fan pressed his palm on the back barn door. The iron door was bone-chillingly cold, and there was a faint humming, like a heart beating. He took a deep breath, and the smell of blood and putrid smell in the supermarket penetrated his nostrils. The scratching sound of the monster's claws outside the iron curtain was like the roar of a rainstorm, and the shelves shook and dust fell. The pain of death still remained on his shoulder, and the bite marks seemed to be tearing again, but he knew that he could not waste another second this time. Damn circle. He cursed and pushed the door hard. The door shaft creaked harshly, and the back warehouse was as dark as ink. Only a ray of gray light filtered through the broken window, illuminating the mountains of cardboard boxes and scattered tools. The air was filled with the smell of moldy flour, mixed with the faint smell of blood. Lin Fan raised the revolver. The 2 bullets were his lifeblood. He moved forward step by step. He held the fire axe tightly in his right hand, and blood was still dripping from the axe blade. Suddenly, a black shadow jumped out from behind the shelf, a mutated mouse, originally the size of a fist, now swollen like a cat, with blood-red eyes and saw-toothed teeth, and lunged at him with a sharp hiss. Lin Fan did not panic and dodged sideways. The axe swept across and hit the rat's body. A wet cracking sound was heard. Black blood spattered onto the wall, corroding white smoke. The mouse twitched and fell to the ground, its limbs still scratching the ground frantically, sparks flying from its claws. The weak point is the spine. Lin Fan murmured, this was verified by himself last time. He kicked the body aside and opened the carton, several packages of compressed biscuits, a bundle of rope, and an old first aid kit containing sutures and antibiotics. In the corner, a rusty metal box attracted him. After breaking it open, there were 5 rounds of 9mm bullets inside, which were perfect for the revolver. He reloaded quickly, and the heavy gun body gave him confidence. Outside the iron curtain door, the impact of the monster wave has made the supermarket wall tremble. The first crack appears, black claws stretch in, and the roar is deafening. Lin Fan grabbed his backpack and rushed up the stairs to the back room, heading straight to the top floor. This supermarket has 3 floors. The top floor is an abandoned storage room, and the door lock is broken. He broke in and locked the iron door. Outside the window was a crumbling street, with flames shooting into the sky, monsters rushing like a tide, and screams and bites heard endlessly. The top floor was empty, and the wind poured in through the broken windows, carrying the smell of scorched earth and corpses. He wasted no time and first nailed the doors and windows with ropes and wooden boards. Every time the hammer hit, there was a dull sound and sawdust flew. The shelves were dismantled into barricades and piled behind the door, enough to block small attacks. The cans in the backpack are divided into categories: 10 cans of beans, 8 cans of corn, and 6 cans of fish. 1 can is allocated every day to avoid hoarding and getting moldy. Water bottles lined up, 4 bottles a day, budgeting carefully. 3 days of supplies, just enough to last until after the peak of the monster wave. Only by surviving will you have a chance. Lin Fan panted and wiped the sweat. Hot blood was still seeping out of his forehead, but he had stitched up the scratch, and the burning pain from the wound reminded him that this was real. He took out his revolver and practiced against the sandbag in the corner. The lesson learned from the previous round: shooting randomly in the first round was a waste of bullets. This round, he aimed, pulled the trigger, and bang. Bullet holes burst into the walls, dust blew into your face, and the aftertaste of gunshots buzzed in your ears. He adjusted his breathing and fired again. The bullet accurately hit the mark, and the smoke from the muzzle choked his nose. Suddenly, there was a sound of shattering glass downstairs, followed by a shrill scream from a woman: "Don't come here. Get away, you monsters." Lin Fan's pupils shrank, and he rushed to the window and looked down. A woman huddled behind a garbage pile in the back alley, and 3 mutant homeless monsters were approaching. She was in ragged clothes, her long hair was messy, and she only held an iron pipe in her hand. Her face was as pale as paper, sweat mixed with tears sliding down her face, and her screams were trembling with despair. The leader of the monsters has a swollen bald head, a belly that is split open to reveal wriggling intestines, claws digging at the ground, and a rotten stench. It roared and pounced. The woman swung out the iron pipe and hit her shoulder, but only black blood spattered. She stumbled when she stepped back, and the monster's claws were raised high. Lin Fan did not hesitate, pushed open the window, and aimed the revolver. "Go to hell." Bang! The first bullet penetrated the bald monster's eye socket, and the brain exploded like a rotten watermelon, splashing onto the wall. Black blood flowed down the wall, making a sizzling and corrosive sound. The monster fell to the ground with a crash, crushing the trash can while convulsing, and the stench erupted. The 2 monsters around were stunned, their blood-red eyes turned to the top floor, and they roared angrily. The woman raised her head, stared at Lin Fan with wide eyes, and her lips trembled. How do you shoot so accurately?" "Their eyes, how do you know the weakness?" Her voice was full of doubts, her chest heaved violently, and her face was full of disbelief, as if she had seen a ghost. Lin Fan sneered, "Come up. Back warehouse stairs." He dropped the rope, and she gritted her teeth and climbed up. Her body was dirty, her gentle face was covered with dust, and she grabbed his arm with trembling hands. The monster chased her, and Lin Fan pulled her in. He swung his axe and cut off the claws of the leading monster. The severed limbs flew down, and their flesh and blood were still twitching. When she saw this, she covered her mouth and backed away, her eyes widening. "Are you not afraid? These monsters just broke out not long ago. Why do you look like you have practiced them thousands of times?" "Call me Lin Fan." He responded briefly, locked the door, asked her to sit down, and handed her a bottle of water. She took it, shaking her hands so much that the water spilled out. She drank it down and gasped, "My name is Bai Ning, thank you. If it weren't for you, I would have been torn to pieces. It's so scary outside, and the blue mist mutates as soon as it touches it. I hid in the alley for 2 hours, and only after hearing the supermarket announcement did I dare to get close." Lin Fan nodded, tore open the medical bag and bandaged the bruise on her arm. She stared at his skilled movements and frowned slightly. "You are so steady, not like a novice. You chopped those monsters cleanly without any panic. Everyone was in a mess, but you." Her voice lowered, confusion and awe flashed in her eyes, and her gentle eyes reflected his figure. Without further explanation, he first shared the canned food, half a can of corn per person, and the fragrant yellow soup was like a luxury in the apocalypse. She ate carefully and said while eating, "I heard from passers-by that there is a large ruins near Century Square. It was originally a science and technology park. There may be an arsenal or a shelter inside. But there are too many monsters and bad human nature. Some people snatch supplies and kill similar people. I wanted to try my luck, but I didn't expect. Intelligence. Lin Fan's heart moved. This was a clue that was not available in the previous round. Okay, let's work together. He stood up, dismantled the shelves and made a trap, tied wooden spikes to ropes, applied acid blood scraped from the monster's corpse, and set up a tripwire at the door. Bai Ning followed, and when handing over the tools, her fingers touched the back of his hand. She blushed slightly and whispered, "You planned too well, like a soldier." As night falls, small groups of monsters sneak into the attic. The leader was a mutated child, crawling with broken legs and screaming, followed by two dog-shaped monsters, dripping saliva and corroding the floor. Bai Ning turned pale and backed up against the wall. "They are coming. Lin Fan, be careful." Lin Fan pulled her out of the way, the trip wire was triggered, and the wooden thorns pierced the abdomen of the child monster. Black blood spurted out, and the intestines hung on the thorns and squirmed. It whined and rolled, and the dog monster rushed towards him. He met it with his axe, breaking his claws with a click, and refilled his revolver. Bang! The dog's head exploded, and its brains splashed to Bai Ning's feet. She screamed and covered her eyes, but took a peek. "Oh my God, how did you predict their path? That tripwire, you just set it up just now, and they were caught." The second dog monster jumped up, Lin Fan rolled to the ground to dodge, and the backhand axe pierced its spine, with a crisp sound of bones breaking. It twitched and fell to the ground, saliva mixed with blood foam. Bai Ning's legs were weak, and she stared at the pile of corpses, her voice trembling. "You are not an ordinary person, it has only been a few hours since the end of the world, how can you become so strong? Those survivors are still crying outside, but you are like the King of Doom." Lin Fan wiped the axe blade, blood dripped down the blade, and the floor sizzled. He looked at her gentle but tough face and lowered his guard for the first time, "Because I died once. Time loops. Every time I die, I restart to the subway and my memory is retained. This is the second round. I remember every monster's weakness and every mistake." Bai Ning's beautiful eyes widened, and the can slipped from her hand and rolled to her feet with a clink. She took a step back, her chest heaving, and shock and fear flashed in her eyes. "Return. Restart. You are a god." "No, it's impossible." Her voice changed from a whisper to trembling, tears filled her eyes, but she suddenly threw herself into his arms, her warm body pressed close to him. "Whether it's true or not, you saved me. I believe in you, Lin Fan. I will follow you, no matter how dangerous it is." At that moment, Lin Fan's heart felt warm. Her body fragrance mixed with the smell of sweat, diluting the blood. He patted her back gently. "We will stock up on supplies for 3 days and explore the ruins tomorrow." The broadcast of the prophecy scroll. "There are clues in the back warehouse, and the space capsule may be the way out." The two worked together to search for hidden supplies on the attic, 2 more boxes of compressed food, barbed wire, and even a bottle of alcohol for disinfection. Lin Fan strictly rationed the food and marked the date. Bai Ning looked at his orderly look with even more admiration in his eyes. "You manage supplies like a veteran. Those people outside will wolf down the food they grab and will starve to death sooner or later. We have all the supplies for 3 days and our backpack is bulging." As dawn breaks, the roar of monsters outside the window subsides, and they prepare to go out. Bai Ning clenched the iron pipe and leaned against him. "I'm not afraid as long as you are here." Suddenly, a figure flashed in the alley downstairs. Not monsters, 5 gun-toting survivors, dressed in rags, guns pointed at the attic. Among them, the leading strong man with a stubble on his face shouted, "Those inside. Do you hear me? Hand over all the cans, water and guns. Otherwise, your nest will be burned down." Bai Ning turned pale and grabbed Lin Fan's arm. they have guns. What should we do? Lin Fan squinted his eyes and tightened his grip on the revolver. The morning light outside the window reflected their greedy eyes, and there was a faint smell of kerosene in the air. The monster is still roaring in the distance, and the ugliness of human nature has already arrived before the crisis. Lin Fan's eyes were locked on the 5 figures downstairs like knives. The morning light lengthened their shadows, and the barrel of the gun shone coldly in the air. The leading man was burly, with scars on his face twisted into a greedy smile. He had a rusty AK on his waist. The followers next to him were holding shotguns and iron bars, and their eyes were full of hungry green light. A dilapidated pickup truck was parked at the entrance of the alley. The truck compartment was filled with looted junk materials. The tires crushed the broken glass on the ground, making a harsh crunching sound. The smell of kerosene became stronger, flammable liquid was sprinkled around their feet, and matchboxes dangled in the hands of the strong men. "Boy, do you hear me? I, Lu Ting, never repeat what I say," the strong man roared. His voice was like sandpaper grinding against a wall, and spittle particles were flying. "It's the end of the world, the weak will eat the strong. Throw away all the food, drink, and firearms, and we will spare your life. Otherwise, we will burn your nest down, and listen to the sound of monsters chewing bones." Bai Ning's nails dug into Lin Fan's arms, and the skin stung. Her lips turned white, and she trembled. "Lin Fan, there are 5 of them, there are many guns, and we only have 3 bullets and axes. Surrender. At least, live." Her eyes were full of fear, her gentle face twisted into despair, her chest heaved violently, and beads of sweat slid down her neck into her collar. Laughter erupted downstairs, and the followers grinned ferociously as they loaded their guns. The clicking sound was particularly harsh in the quiet dawn. "Boss, look at that little girl, she has tender skin and tender flesh, just perfect for grabbing a warm bed." A bald man licked his lips and pointed his gun directly at the attic window. Lu Ting squinted his eyes, scanned the traces of the rope hanging down, and sneered, "Go up the stairs and surround the back warehouse. I want that kid to kneel down and call me master." Lin Fan sneered in his heart. In the last cycle of reincarnation, these beasts burned the supermarket survivor to death, forcing him to run out of food and ammunition and starve to death. This round, he remembered every step they took. The fuel tank of the pickup truck was on the left rear wheel, which was prone to explosion. The strong man had an old injury on his left knee and the axe was specially used for cutting. Without hesitation, he whispered to Bai Ning, "Hide behind the door and don't make a sound. See how I kill them." Bai Ning's eyes widened and tears flashed. "Are you crazy? They have guns." Lin Fan moved like a ghost, grabbing alcohol bottles, compressed biscuit crumbs and acid blood scraped from the monster's corpse, quickly mixing it into a sticky explosive, stuffing it into an iron can, using a rope as a fuse, and tightening the barbed wire to form 2 soil bombs. The musty rotten smell mixed with acid blood on the top floor of the supermarket stung his nose. His nose twitched slightly. He lit a piece of gauze torn from the medical box as a delay fuse, tied a stone to it, and threw it from the rear window at a low angle, straight towards the pickup truck's fuel tank. Buzz, the stone fell to the ground with a roar, and no one paid attention. Lu Ting had already led the 3 of them up the stairs to the back room. His boots shattered the glass and they approached the attic door with a muffled thud. The follower held the door at gunpoint. "Open the door. Or I'll kill you." The door hinge creaked, and Lu Ting kicked the barricade open, causing sawdust to fly like rain. He broke in, AK glanced around, and smiled evilly. "Boy, where are the supplies?" Bai Ning screamed and retreated, and was knocked down by 2 followers. The iron pipe flew off, and her hair was scattered in the struggle. "Let me go. You beasts." Lin Fan was invisible in the shadow of the shelf, his fire axe was hidden in his sleeve, and his revolver was cold against his palm. Lu Ting pointed his gun at Bai Ning's head and smiled ferociously. "Hand it over. Otherwise, I'll blow up her flowers first." The followers laughed wildly and tore off Bai Ning's collar, exposing the fair skin on her shoulders. She cried and trembled, "Lin Fan, save me." Desperate, Bai Ning thought it was over, but there was a sudden explosion downstairs. There was a loud bang, the fuel tank of the pickup truck exploded, fireballs shot into the sky, black smoke billowed like a tornado, and debris shot out like shrapnel. The two left-behind followers screamed and fell to the ground. One had a broken leg and spurted blood. The other's face was charred, and the flesh sizzled. The smell of burning was rushing up to the top floor. The aftermath of the explosion caused the stairs to collapse, gray stones to roll down, and the monster roared in the distance and rushed towards him in fright. Lu Ting's face changed drastically, and his blood-red eyes widened. "Who did it?" "That bomb, you kid." He turned his gun, and Bai Ning took the opportunity to bite the follower's arm. "Black blood?" "No, it's human." The follower yelled and let go, and she got away. Lin Fan was like a tiger coming out of its cage, and the first axe swept across. Click. The old injury on Lu Ting's left knee was broken, bone stubble protruded, and blood and flesh spattered on the floor. He knelt down and screamed miserably, "Ah, my leg. How the hell did you know?" His voice changed from arrogance to trembling, and fear flashed in his eyes for the first time. Bai Ning climbed up and stared at Lin Fan's back with her round eyes, her chest beating wildly. "Lin Fan, the trap you set up. Oh my God, that explosion, their car is gone." Her voice was filled with disbelief, and she covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes burning with admiration. The follower loaded his shotgun and bang. The bullet grazed Lin Fan's shoulder, and hot blood seeped through his clothes. He didn't dodge, he fired double shots with his revolver, bang bang. A precise headshot, the brain splashed on the wall like a rotten melon, a mixture of red and white dripped down the wall, filling the air like a rotten omen. The last follower hit him with an iron bar. Lin Fan dwarfed himself, raised the axe blade, and his intestines stretched out like a rope. He twitched and fell to the ground, and the smell of urine erupted. Lu Ting dragged his broken leg up to the door and fired AK randomly. The bullets shattered the window glass and the fragments were like rain. Lin Fan pounced on him and crushed his pistol with his foot. The bones cracked and Lu Ting's face twisted. The monster is coming. You can't win. Lu Ting, will come back and chop you up." He gritted his teeth and rolled down the stairs, leaving a long trace of blood and disappearing in the smoke. Bai Ning rushed to hug Lin Fan, trembling all over, tears wet his chest. You killed 4. Like lightning, they didn't even fight back. "Lin Fan, are you a devil or a god?" Her voice was choked with sobs, her warm body fragrance mixed with blood, her hands tightly grasped the corners of his clothes, her fingertips were cold but full of attachment. Suddenly, a vision flashed in Lin Fan's mind, he was awakening for the first time. Foreknowledge is like lightning, a wave of monsters surges from the end of the alley, a dozen mutated dogs and homeless people, led by a giant rat king, the weak points in the spine flash red, and rush towards the top floor. There are only 30 seconds left. His pupils shrank suddenly. Monster. Quick, grab the gun and go downstairs. Bai Ning was still in shock. When she heard him roar, her legs were weak but she was pulled up. What? Prediction. She followed, the fear in her eyes turning into fanatical trust. The fire was raging downstairs, 2 charred corpses were twisted, and guns were scattered. Lin Fan picked up the AK, half-full magazine, shotgun and ammunition box, while Bai Ning grabbed the iron rod and backpack. The monster roared as it approached, its claws scratched the asphalt road like thunder, and black shadows moved in the smoke. The giant rat jumped out first, as big as a wolf, its bloody eyes locked on them, its acid teeth dripping and corroding the ground. Lin Fan pushed Bai Ning onto the wreckage of the pickup truck. No, the truck. Lu Ting's modified truck was parked at the end of the alley, with the key still inserted, and the truck bed was full of oil drums and supplies. He jumped on the driver's seat and turned the key. Bai Ning jumped into the passenger seat and screamed, "Pack of dogs." Behind. AK fired, da. The bullets tore apart the three dog monsters, their fur exploded, black blood sprayed out of the windshield like a fountain, and the stench filled their noses. The white iron rod was smashed out of the window, hitting a rat's paw, and the broken bone flew off. She shouted, "Lin Fan, turn right. The monster is blocking the road." Her face was stained with blood, but her eyes were hot. "You shot like a machine. On the first day of the apocalypse, you robbed them all." The truck crashed into the garbage pile, the tires crushed the monster corpse, there was a muffled sound of broken bones and flesh, and blood splashed like waves. The giant rat king pounced on the carriage, clawing at the iron sheet and tearing it apart. Lin Fan braked and swerved, causing the rat king to fly off and onto the street. His spine shattered and his internal organs exploded and squirmed. It whined and rolled, and the dogs pounced on the same kind, giving them a breather. The engine roared, the truck rushed out of the alley, flames reflected in the rearview mirror, and monsters chased after them like a tsunami. Lin Fan stepped on the accelerator, the steering wheel was sticky with sweat, and he glanced at Bai Ning. "Lu Ting escaped, and this is a big revenge. But we have guns, cars, and supplies. 3 days becomes a week." He sneered, and his murderous and decisive eyes made her heart tremble. Bai Ning gasped and wiped the blood, staring at the side of his face, her voice trembling in admiration. "You killed them instead. Blow up cars, break legs, and shoot heads, all in the blink of an eye. Those people outside are still crying, but you, lead me to survive. Lin Fan, it's too dangerous to fight alone. We have to find allies, tough guys like Qin Feng, or scientists to solve the mystery." Lin Fan nodded, knowing that she was right. The truck drove into the ruined avenue, with collapsed high-rise buildings on both sides like tombstones. In the distance, the dark shadow of Century Plaza Science and Technology Park towered, with a faint blue mist filling the air. Suddenly, another prediction flashed through my mind. In the core of the ruins of the square, a yellowed prophecy scroll was placed on the ruins of the wall. The monsters were heavily guarded and surrounded by black claws. The secret of the space capsule could be solved instantly. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel, his pupils blazing. "The ruins ahead, there are prophecy scrolls. But the monsters are in prison. Bai Ning, get ready, this time, we will go against the will." The truck roared forward, the roar of the engine covered the roar of the monsters behind, and the Doomsday craze had just begun. The roar of the truck engine was like the roar of a beast, tearing apart the dead silence of the ruined avenue. The tires ran over the broken asphalt, making a harsh friction like crunching bones. Gray fog filled the air at dawn, and the remains of Century Plaza Science and Technology Park stood in front of them like the bones of giant beasts. The towering glass curtain walls shattered into thousands of sharp blades, reflecting the blood-red morning light. Mutated corpse remains were scattered on the ground, and maggots squirmed in the rotten flesh. The air was filled with a strong stench, mixed with the sour smell of metal rust, which made Bai Ning's stomach churn. She covered her nose tightly, and her face was as pale as paper. Lin Fan glanced at her, with a cold arc at the corner of his mouth. As the steering wheel turned, the truck stopped and hid behind the collapsed billboard, the engine humming to cover it up. The predictions reappeared in his mind like lightning. The patrol dog circled every 5 minutes, and its weak point was the soft flesh under the belly. The electronic lock at the entrance of the building required 3 codes to be entered, which came from the broken terminal on the wall. 2050, meteorite, virus. A wave of zombies is brewing in the periphery, and hundreds of black shadows are pouring out from the underground passages. Time is running out. Hold down, don't panic, he whispered, grabbed the AK and checked the magazine. 40 rounds, 12 rounds for the shotgun, and only 1 round for the revolver. The supply backpack was pressed at his feet, and the cans made a muffled sound when they collided. "I will open the way, you cover. If you survive, you will have a scroll, break this vicious cycle." Lin Fan, this place, Bai Ning's voice trembled, his knuckles turning white as he gripped the iron rod, and his eyes scanned the dark shadows patrolling in the distance, a dozen mutated dogs, with eroded fur, poison sacs bulging on their backs, their claws scratching the ground like knives scratching iron, making a harsh metallic sound. There are 10 times more monsters than in the alley. The prediction says that the scroll is in the core building. How do we get in? As soon as the car stops, we will become their flesh. Her chest heaved violently, sweat dripped down her forehead, mixed with blood, making a miserable arc. Her eyes were full of despair, and her legs instinctively clamped on the edge of the seat, as if she would collapse at any time. Bai Ning's eyes widened, tears glistening. Are you crazy? Hundreds of monsters. We don't have enough ammunition for 2 rounds. But she gritted her teeth and nodded, the fear in her eyes turned to fanaticism, and she tightened her grip on the shotgun and loaded it. The clicking sound echoed in the small car, and her heart beat like a drum. She saw Lin Fan jump out of the car, his fire axe stained with blood reflected the morning light, his movements were like ghosts and he was sneaking silently, and his back was like the King of Doom, standing in a sea of corpses, which took her breath away. Oh my God, why is he always like this, fighting his way out of despair? In the shadow of the core building of the Science and Technology Park, the entrance steel door is ajar, the red light of the electronic lock flashes, and it buzzes like a dying swarm of bees. Surrounded by black-clawed monsters, 5 or 6 humanoid corpses were transformed, with skin as cracked as tree bark, drool dripping and corroding the cement, deep-set eye sockets with green light shining, and claws clasping against the ground with the sound of cracking joints. Lin Fan signaled Bai Ning to hide behind the wall. He touched the terminal, broken glass pricked his palm, and blood seeped out. He entered 2050, the lock did not respond. Meteorite, the red light flashed wildly. Virus, the green light flashed. The door hinge creaked open, and the cold wind hit my face, carrying the smell of corpses. It's done. Bai Ning whispered, but she saw the monster turned its head, its green eyes locked, and her heart almost stopped. They are coming. Lin Fan, hurry up. The monster roared and rushed towards it, its claws were like knives. Lin Fan turned back and swiped the AK 3 times. The bullet tore open the chest of the leading corpse, and the heart exploded into a black blood mist. The corpse hit the door and flew away, and there was a muffled sound of bones shattering on the ground. Bai Ning's shotgun roared, shotgun sprayed, and the second corpse's face was shattered, its teeth were like shrapnel, and the wall was covered with flesh and blood. Her hands were numb from the recoil, and she stared at Lin Fan with wide eyes. You entered, precognition. Kill 2 monsters before they even touch you, let's go in. The ruins were like a maze, and the wind whistled among the broken walls like a ghost crying. Lin Fan crawled forward, smelling the mixed stench of rotten flesh and mold at the tip of his nose, and guided himself away from the sight of the dogs. He swung his axe to kill a lone rat monster. The axe blade was embedded in the skull, and the brains exploded like mud. Fishy heat sprayed on his sleeves. The rat corpse twitched and fell to the ground, its claws scraping the ground. Bai Ning followed, the barrel of the shotgun trembling, but biting her lower lip, her eyes burning with admiration. Lin Fan, you even know the weakness of rats. It's like you have read the future. The inner hall is as dark as a tomb, with searchlights sweeping over it. The yellowed scroll is placed on the broken main console. The ancient sheepskin exudes the smell of mold and rot, and mountains of corpse ashes pile up around it. Lin Fan rushed to grab it, and the scroll unfolded, and a blood-red ancient text appeared. The meteorite virus originated from alien experiments, and the space capsule was opened to break the curse of time. Deep in the Science and Technology Park, there are 3 codes on the hatch: reincarnation, betrayal, and liftoff. His pupils shrank suddenly, and a premonition flashed. The zombie wave broke out. The ground shook outside, and hundreds of corpses poured out from the underground passage, rolling like black waves, roaring to the sky, claws scraping the cement like thunder, and a putrid storm coming. The building shook and dust rained down. Bai Ning screamed, tide of corpses. Monsters from all over the city have swarmed the square. Lin Fan, we are trapped to death. Her face was twisted and desperate, the shotgun shells clinked on the ground, her legs were weak, and tears were rolling in her eyes, thinking that the end was coming again. The truck engine roared again. Lin Fan jumped onto the driver's seat, turned the key and roared. Bai Ning jumped into the passenger seat, and as soon as the door was closed, the glass cracked like a spider web and made a creaking sound. She screamed and thumped, "Go!" Lin Fan stepped on the accelerator, and the truck crashed out like a rhinoceros. The tires crushed more than a dozen corpses, flesh and blood splashed under the car, a muffled sound like thunder, blood sprayed on the windshield, and his vision was blurred. The giant corpse jumped on the roof of the car, claws tearing at the iron skin, and the crunching and twisting sound of metal was ear-piercing. Lin Fan braked and swerved, and the giant corpse flew away and smashed into the group of corpses, crushing several of them, and its internal organs exploded like a sea of squirming insects. Lin Fan held the scroll in his arms and dragged her to run. Truck. Crash out. They rushed out of the building and were surrounded by a sea of corpses. The leader's corpse was as big as a bear, with a red light protruding from his spine and tearing the air with his claws. Bai Ning took cover and fired 5 shots from her shotgun. Bloody holes were opened in the front row of the corpses. Black blood spattered her face like rain, and the fishy heat stung her nose. She coughed and shouted, "Half the ammunition is left. They are blocking the road, Lin Fan." The AK fired from the window, da-da-da. The magazine was emptied, the corpse's head exploded like a rotten melon, the brains splashed red and white on the road. Bai Ning hit the claws with the iron rod, and the broken bones flew off. She yelled, "Lin Fan, you hit like a tank. The corpses split apart, turn right." Her voice changed from fear to ecstasy, her face was bloody and sweaty, her eyes were full of adoration, and she clung to his arm. "Countless corpses are still chasing you, but you always have a way. The scroll, we got it." The truck rushed out of the square, followed by the corpse wave like a tsunami. Alarms in high-rise buildings in the distance suddenly blared, and piercing electric whistles penetrated the sky. Citywide zombie wave alarm. The shelters are blocked, and it is expected to engulf the city in 3 hours. The engine oil temperature soared, smoke sprayed from the exhaust pipe, the backpack of supplies overturned, and the cans rolled down at their feet. Lin Fan glanced at the rearview mirror and sneered, "The tide of zombies has escalated. This round is stronger than the last one. But the scroll has a hatch code, and we are close." 2 hours later, the truck drove back to the shelter of the supermarket, its tires scuffed and bloody, its engine wheezing like a dying animal. Lin Fan kicked open the iron door, and Bai Ning dragged his backpack in to follow. The smell of mold and rot in the hall was overwhelming, and the shelves were empty. There were only 18 cans of cans, 19 bottles of water, 1.5 boxes of compressed food, and the gauze in the medical box was bottomless. He lit the oil lamp, the yellow light reflected the scroll, and the ancient writing shone with a strange light. "The space capsule, deep in the science and technology park," Lin Fan murmured, "but it needs to be interpreted by scientists. The 3-code hidden mechanism. Bai Ning, your shooting has improved, but it's not enough." Lin Fan nodded and optimized the distribution, 1.5 cans of water and half a pack of biscuits per person per day, strictly controlled ammunition, and repaired traps with ropes and wires. He handed over the iron rod, hold it firmly and stab at the weak point. The training began. In the open space on the top floor of the supermarket, axes and sticks clanked. Bai Ning was sweating profusely. She stumbled and fell at first, and her knees were bruised and bloodshot. She gritted her teeth and climbed up, again. Lin Fan corrected his posture. An hour later, she smashed the wooden box with a stick, and the fragments flew. She turned around excitedly, "Look. Like your headshot." The admiration in her eyes became more intense. Her sweaty clothes were tight against her body, outlining her curves, and her chest heaved as she breathed. Bai Ning sat down and wiped the shotgun, with 7 bullets left. She gasped and stared at him. Scientist. Mu Xue kind. Lin Fan, your precognition saved us 3 times. When we hit the zombie wave, I thought we were dead, but you swung your tail to kill the giant corpse. In the apocalypse, you are a god. Her eyes were watery, and she came closer to hold his hand. Her fingertips were warm and trembling, and her body fragrance was mixed with blood. The supplies are almost gone, train me. I don't want to hold you back. As night falls, the roar of the corpse tide rolls in from a distance, approaching like thunder, alarms echo throughout the city, and red light sweeps across the window glass. Lin Fan studied the scroll and foresaw a crisis in the shelter. Suddenly, the intercom, an old piece of equipment from a supermarket, buzzing with static electricity, and he had never turned it on, bang. A hoarse voice penetrated the quiet night, Lin Fan, boy, Lu Ting. Climb back to the camp with a broken leg. I heard that you snatched the scroll. I knew the secret of that thing in the science and technology park. The space capsule is not a salvation, it is a trap. Hand it over, or I will surround you with 100 people and burn down your nest. Bai Ning's face turned pale, the iron rod fell to the ground, and she stared at Lin Fan with wide eyes. Lu Ting. How did he know? We are being watched. She threw herself at the window, and the mountains in the distance were flashing with red light, like wolf eyes watching, and her heart was beating wildly. Lin Fan held the axe in his hand, his pupils blazing with cold fire, and precognitive visions emerged, arms piled up in Lu Ting's camp, betrayers were approaching, and a wave of corpses joined forces to surround and kill. This round, the frenzy escalated. Lin Fan's pupils were like knives, and he held the fire axe tightly. The remaining blood on the axe blade dried into black scabs, and the fishy smell hit his nostrils. Premonitions came in his mind like a tide. Lu Ting's small group of scouts were approaching, 10 people armed with rifles, kerosene bullets rained down, and the tide of corpses joined forces to smash the door. The shelter collapsed, Bai Ning was torn, and he himself cut off his arms and burned the body to death. This round, the crisis is ahead of schedule. He pressed the intercom hard and his voice was as cold as ice. Lu Ting, you dog with a broken leg, go back and lick your wounds. Scroll. It's just the corpses of 100 of you. Putting down the intercom, he tugged on Bai Ning's arm. The new wound in his palm was stained with blood on her sleeve. Grab the gun. They come first. The static on the walkie-talkie was like a ghost whispering, and Lu Ting's hoarse laughter echoed in the cold air of the supermarket, mixed with the roaring waves of the zombies in the distance. The red light alarm swept across the window glass, reflecting Bai Ning's pale face. She landed on the iron bar, making a crisp metal collision sound, and pointed at Lin Fan with trembling fingertips. He has 100 people. Arms. We only have this amount of supplies, and the zombies are still coming. What should we do? Lin Fan, we will be burned to ashes. Bai Ning's heart was beating wildly, the shotgun was loaded with a click, and the crispness of the remaining 7 shells made her throat choke, and the fear in her eyes was like a whirlpool. Scout? Lin Fan, how did you know? God, we are dead. The night wind outside the window carried the stench of rotting corpses, the black shadow outside the wire trap shook, 10 humanoid ghosts approached, the rifle's metal reflected light, and the kerosene bottle swayed, making the sound of liquid sloshing. The leading scout smiled evilly and whispered, Boy, I heard that you hit the corpse like a tank. Burn you to death, the scroll boss wants you. But the kerosene bombs flew in an arc, the bottle hit the door and exploded, the orange flames licked the iron door, the heat wave hit the face with the pungent smell of gasoline, the door frame twisted and creaked, and the barbed wire melted and dripped like wax. Bai Ning coughed and covered her nose, her eyes blurred with tears. Fire. They blocked the door, and the roar of corpses is approaching. The tide of corpses outside was attracted by the light of the fire, and dozens of black shadows pounced on them. Their claws scraped against the iron wire like 1,000 knives, and there was a muffled sound of tearing bones and flesh. Lin Fan swung his axe to break the rope, smashed open the back window and jumped out, foreseeing a flash of deceleration. Time was like glue and the world was slow. With a thought in his mind, he tried to awaken, and a new ability emerged. The air around him was distorted, and he slowed down in 3 seconds. Gunshots exploded. Bullets flew past the window like a swarm of swarms, glass shattered like rain, sharp fragments pricked her cheeks, and blood rolled down her face in sweat. After she screamed and threw herself down on the shelves, she blindly fired the shotgun, spraying the pellets into the night sky. She only hit a passing rat corpse, her head exploded into red mist, and fishy heat splashed against the wall. Lin Fan rolled over to the window. Only one round of the revolver was fired. The bullet penetrated the forehead of the leading scout. His brains spurted out like black arrows. The body fell back and hit the ground. The bubbles in his throat were filled with blood. His companion stared blankly. "Boss, shot him in the head. Is this kid a ghost?" But after decelerating for only 3 seconds, gunshots came after him. The bullets passed by with scorching heat. Lin Fan pushed Bai Ning and rolled into the ditch of rubble. The corpse's claws flew into the air and hit the ground, with a muffled sound of cracking bones. A sea of fire engulfed the supermarket, the heat wave roared like a giant beast. Lu Ting's scouts roared and surrounded him, and bullets rained down on him. Lin Fan rushed to the truck while protecting Bai Ning. The overheated engine was filled with smoke and the tires were slippery with blood. He stepped on the accelerator and knocked away the 2 corpses. Bones, flesh, and mud splashed on the chassis, and a fishy stench hit the car. But the rifles fired from behind. The AK had an empty magazine, and the revolver was out of ammunition. He threw the axe and chopped off the scout's shoulder, but a giant corpse pounced on him. His claws tore off the old wounds on his shoulder, new blood surged wildly, and the pain was like burning fire. The scout's movements were as slow as sleepwalking. Lin Fan's axe swept across the 2 men's throats, cutting off the throats of the 2 men. The arc of the hot blood fountain lengthened, and the blood mist stagnated like beads when the severed limbs flew away. He grabbed Bai Ning and climbed over the wall. The shotgun roared, and the last 4 rounds were cleared. 3 corpse heads exploded in a row, and the skull fragments flew like a slow motion. Bai Ning's eyes widened, and his voice trembled as if seeing a miracle. "Time is slow. Lin Fan, you let them turn into turtles. The monster's claws are stuck in the air, you kill 4 like chopping melons." At 0 o'clock of the Doomsday, the familiar supermarket shelves were empty, and the sound of cans clinking echoed. Lin Fan opened his eyes and sat up. The memory of the scroll was engraved in his mind, the 3 codes of the space capsule flashed, and the new ability of time slowed down and awakened. The shoulder injury disappeared, and the ammunition was fully loaded, 40 rounds for the AK, 12 rounds for the shotgun, and 6 rounds for the revolver. He grabbed his walkie-talkie, backpack, axe, and gun, and pointed directly at the ruins of the military camp. Qin Feng was there, with force like a tiger and loyalty to call upon. "For this round, form a team." He murmured, the engine roared and he rushed out of the supermarket and headed straight for the ruins of the military camp on the outskirts of the city. The corpses were sparse, and the axes chopped off individual pieces like vegetables. The steel bars of the military camp ruins were broken like animal bones, and the rotten smell of gunpowder smoke filled the air. Qin Feng fought alone against the monsters in the central open space. He was tall and tall, his muscles were gleaming with sweat. His broken bayonet danced wildly, piercing the throat of a mutated wolf. Blood spurted out like a column. The wolf corpse twitched and scratched the ground with its claws, and fishy heat splashed onto the bare skin of his chest. Surrounded by more than a dozen corpse dogs, the poison sacs were bulging and dripping with green juice corroding the cement, and their roars were deafening. Qin Feng gasped and roared, "Come on, you beast. I will kill you 100 by myself." But his arm was bleeding profusely, his bayonet was bent, and his eyes were tired and desperate. The dogs pounced on him, and he staggered back. "Damn. I ran out of ammunition, will you fail this time? Lin Fan. Bai Ning screamed, the iron rod smashed into the corpse's eye socket, green juice burst out and pungent, her face was twisted and desperate, tears mixed with blood, don't die. I will follow. Lin Fan foresaw the ending, the corpse tide swallowed the car. He pushed her away with a sneer, live and see you again. Next round, recruiting people. The giant corpse's claws penetrated the chest, the vision was dark, the heart burst with pain, and the world was reset, 0-point restart. Lin Fan's truck stopped, the engine roared like a lion, and the AK fired 6 rounds. The leading dog's head exploded, and the brain was filled with red mist. The poison sac exploded and the green mist filled the air. The rest of the dogs turned their heads. Qin Feng's eyes widened, and his voice trembled as if he had seen a ghost. You, truck shooter. Killed 3 dogs in 1 round, and the weak point exploded directly in the abdomen. Heart. Who is this? There is such a monster in the end. Lin Fan jumped down and struck the dog's spine with a muffled sound, blood splashing on his boots. He said coldly, Lin Fan, Qin Feng, you are strong, join me. The space capsule breaks the circle, and the zombies are surrounded and killed. Qin Feng's bayonet hit the dog's eye, and green juice splashed everywhere. He wiped blood and laughed, but his eyes were shocked, and he stared at Lin Fanru, scroll. Boy, do you know my name? Killing dogs like chickens, foretelling. I have been fighting for half a day, and you cleared the place with 3 axes. Corpse tied. That piece of shit Lu Ting sold his brother to change his gun a long time ago, join. But it proves that you are awesome, come on. The remnants of the dogs rushed towards him, and Lin Fan slowed down. The air around him was stagnant. Qin Feng stared at him, time, stopped. The dog's claws were frozen. Lin Fan swiped the axe and cut off the 4 dogs' necks. The blood pools spread and the blood spread. He slowed down and said, enough. Qin Feng's throat rolled, and he knelt down to pick up the bayonet. His voice was hoarse and he worshipped, enough. I'm following you, God. No, King of Doom. Show me the scroll. Lin Fan unfolded the sheepskin, and the ancient writing was blood-red, alien virus, space capsule 3 codes. Lu Ting covets it. I foresee his siege, so I strengthen the protection first. Qin Feng's eyes burned with enthusiasm, and he patted Lin Fan's shoulder, let's go. I demolished the remaining guns from the military camp, and the 3 of them massacred the city. Exploring the pharmacy, you can see the shadows of corpses in the ruined alleys at night, and the smell of rotten flesh blows in your face. The 3 of them were sneaking. Qin Feng opened the way, his bayonet was like lightning, stabbing the soft flesh of the corpse's abdomen, and the intestines dragged on the ground and squirmed and splashed with fish. Lin Fan slowed down to cover, and Bai Ning's shotgun fired 2 rounds to clear the way. She whispered, pharmacy door lock, Lin Fan code. Prediction, meteorite rainy day, July 15, 2050. The door opened, the inner shelf collapsed, the blue bottle of antiviral medicine flashed, 30 bottles were grabbed, and the fragrance of the refreshing medicine suppressed the rancid smell. Qin Feng laughed loudly, 1 week. Lin Fan, you even know the weak point of the medicine, this team is invincible. Return raid. Lu Ting's small group of 5 people rushed over on motorcycles, their engines roaring like wolves, rifles firing like bullets, and fire flashing across the night. Bai Ning screamed and threw herself on the ground, the scout is here again. Qin Feng jumped out with a ferocious smile, and Lin Fan nodded as time slowed down. He pounced on the motorcycle like a tiger, the bayonet pierced the driver's chest, blood sprayed like mist, the motorcycle rolled and smashed the corpses, the explosive fireball swallowed 2 people, and the smell of burnt meat was pungent. The remaining 3 men trembled with their guns. Qin Feng traitor. You, crush us like insects. Qin Feng cut off the barrel of his gun and punched his skull with a muffled sound. His brains splattered on the ground. He turned around and yelled at Bai Ning, "Look! I'm killing the dog for Lin Fan." Bai Ning's face turned pale and she was ecstatic. She held the medicine bottle and trembled, "Brother Qin's power. Lin Fan slows down, you two join forces. Lu Ting is dead." The truck carried the three of them back to the supermarket. Bai Ning saw Qin Feng as if he had seen a savior, but first shocked Lin Fan, "Restart. You are alive again. This big guy." Qin Feng laughed and hugged the iron rod. "Sister, Lin Fan said you are a strong gunman, I will teach you close combat." The reinforcement began. Qin Feng removed the barbed wire and made it thicker. The welding sentry tower was 3 meters high, the steel pipes clashed, and the smell of sweat and metal rust filled the air. Lin Fan predicted it, and Bai Ning stared. "Brother Qin is welding like a fortress, Lin Fan, you recruit him like a god. Are there any supplies left?" The shelter was full of supplies, 36 cans, 38 bottles of water, 3 boxes of biscuits, 30 medicines, 100 rounds of ammunition for the military camp, 2 new bayonets, and motorcycle oil barrels. Lin Fan's assignment was doubled every day. The training was upgraded. Bai Ning was proficient in the stick technique. Qin Feng taught her to lock her throat and break bricks with one stick. The fragments flew away. She screamed excitedly, "Lin Fan, look like you." Qin Feng stared in admiration, "Boy, upgrade time control. I have never seen you in the end, live." Late at night, the corpse on the sentry tower roared away, and the intercom rang with static again. A new female voice pierced through clearly, "Lin Fan. Mu Xue, scientist. I intercepted your signal. I know the location of the space capsule, the underground laboratory of the Science and Technology Park. But the scrolls are exchanged, or the trap will swallow you." Bai Ning and Qin Feng all stared at Lin Fan, with a strange light in their eyes, a new crisis brewing. Lin Fan sneered and held the scroll, predicting, "Betrayal is imminent." Qin Feng's muscled arms smashed the steel pipe, and sweat mixed with the smell of rust dripped onto the cement. His copperbell eyes widened, and his voice was like thunder, "You're right, sister. I slaughtered Lu Ting's scouts, and that bitch sold his brothers in exchange for guns, scientists. Most women in the apocalypse are poisonous scorpions. Lin Fan, where's the prediction? I'm with you, but this time I'll die. If the scroll is lost, we're all in trouble. The air is filled with the smell of flour from compressed biscuits and the sour smell of rusty wires. The cans on the shelves are stacked like a mountain, and the dewdrops are rolling down from the water bottles, reflecting the dim light of the red warning light. Lin Fan had a flood of premonitions in his mind. Mu Xue knew the cabin, but Lu Ting ambushed her. A wave of corpses broke out, and she unlocked the first layer of the scroll. All 4 keys opened the cabin door. He sneered and unfolded the sheepskin scroll, and the blood-red ancient text squirmed like a living thing under the candlelight. Repair for an hour. Take inventory and upgrade, and survive tonight first. Qin Feng, add a machine gun mount to the sentry tower. Bai Ning, load up the shotgun to practice sniping, and the corpse has a weak eye socket during the day. Mu Xue, take it, but predict the situation and control the field. The team moved like a pendulum. Qin Feng's welding gun spit out blue flames, welding steel plates into a fortress wall, and the smell of hot metal burned his nostrils. He panted and wiped sweat, staring at the image on Lin Fan's back. "Boy, the supplies are full. 36 cans, 38 water, medicine 30 bottles, hundreds of rounds of ammunition, 2 bayonets, motorcycle oil. I was hungry for 3 days before the end, and your supermarket was like a mountain of gold." Training. Bai Ning's shotgun was loaded with a click, and the 12 bullets were crisp, and she swung the stick. The dummy's head was choked, and sawdust flew everywhere. She whispered excitedly, but her eyes showed attachment. "Lin Fan, restart 3 times and you will become a god. The shoulder injury is gone, and the deceleration is like a dream. I have practiced it, and I will follow you closely." Lin Fan disassembled and wiped the AK, and the slick cartridge case ding-dang, the 6-round revolver flashed, and he distributed 5 bottles of medicine to each person. The blue liquid cooled the skin, antiviral, life-saving at the edge of infection. After the upgrade, the truck set off. Prediction: Mu Xue is not lying, but the tide of corpses will engulf the city, and Lu Ting will pick up the corpses. In the blink of an hour, the roar of the engine tore through the night, the tires of the modified truck crushed bones and shattered, and blood splattered on the chassis. Qin Feng's co-pilot's bayonet was sharpened, Bai Ning's shotgun was set up in the back compartment, Mu Xue's warehouse was hidden in the east of the Science and Technology Park, neon fragments flickered like will-o'-the-wisps, the rotting corpses in the ruins alley were blown by the wind, and claws scratched the wall like 1,000 fingernails. Lin Fan slowed down to warm up, and the air around him was slightly distorted. Slow down and prepare for war. The truck stopped at the warehouse door, the rusty iron gate creaked open, the light bulb inside flickered, and a thin figure of a woman leaned on the experimental bench, Mu Xue. Her white coat was stained with blood, her eyes were as sharp as an eagle behind her glasses, and she was holding a syringe flashing with green liquid. Her voice was trembling but firm. Lin Fan. Scroll. Bai Ning pointed his gun, Qin Feng growled, "Woman, be quiet. I smell the corpse juice on you." Lin Fan threw the scroll, and her fingers flew like butterflies. Under the candlelight, the ancient text appeared and read, "First level of light. B3 underground of the experimental building in the center of the space capsule, meteorite virus alien experiment, not a natural disaster. 4 keys are required to open the capsule: red crystal key military barracks, blue liquid key pharmacy deep cabinet, black iron key century square corpse nest, metal key Lu Ting's hand. Reincarnation, betrayal, liftoff. The 3-code finger trap of the hatch." Qin Feng's throat rolled and his eyes widened. He punched the wall with his eyes and trembled. 4 keys. I have demolished the barracks, and the red crystal is deep in the ammunition depot. Lin Fan, this woman is a divination. Can she decipher ancient texts like a heavenly book in seconds? Is there anyone with brains alive in the end of the world? Bai Ning's gun turned pale, the keys are scattered, and the corpse tied Lu Ting, we can't grab it. Mu Xue pushed up her glasses, sneered and grabbed the syringe, I'll make the potion, and put in the melted flesh, which is the weak point of the rotting corpses. I'll join in for protection. The joy is short-lived and the earth shakes. Prediction is like lightning, super zombies explode, the lair in the city center is destroyed, and thousands of corpses surge in. Lin Fan yelled, "Get in the car. The tide is coming." Black clouds loomed outside the window, corpses roared like a sea of thunder, green mist sprayed from cracks in the ground, thousands of mutated corpses rolled over the ruins like a tidal wave of ants, their claw arms swung to smash the car lights, pieces of rotten flesh flew and stuck to the windshield, and the stench poured down like a sea of feces. Qin Feng's bayonet danced wildly, cutting off the arm of the corpse that was leaning against the window. The severed limb twitched and spurted out black blood. He roared, "Fuck! Thousands of corpses." Lin Fan had predicted it right, I can't stop it. Bai Ning's shotgun roared, shotgun blasted into the corpse's face, and his skull shattered. The red mist filled the air, and she screamed, "Too much. The road is stuck." Mu Xue's syringe was thrown, and the green liquid exploded and melted the corpse's skin. The pieces of flesh sizzled and melted like wax. The corpses shrieked and retreated. She glared at Lin Fan, "When did you know the tide?" "God." Lin Fan stepped on the accelerator furiously, the truck hit a wave of corpses, bones, flesh and mud splashed on the chassis, and the engine roared like a beast. He had a premonition, under the Century Plaza in the core of the lair, the black iron key is in the brain of the Queen's corpse. Turn around the square. Destroy the nest, slow down and drive away. The tide of corpses attacked, claws scratched the metal of the roof of the car, and screamed. The tires were stuck in the pile of corpses, and Bai Ning screamed in the air, "No bullets." Lin Fan, I. A corpse claw penetrated the window and scratched her arm, green juice oozing out, her face twisted and screaming in pain. The wound was swollen and infected, and black threads crawled on the skin. Mu Xue threw a potion to stop the bleeding, and the blue liquid bubbled. Quickly die. The virus melts the bones. The crisis is overwhelming. Lin Fan slows down and activates. The world was frozen for 3 seconds, the corpse's claws froze the air, and the roar stretched like a ghost's cry. He jumped to the top of the cabin and slashed the back of the queen's corpse with an axe. The giant beast was 3 meters tall. Its carapace was as hard as iron. Its skull split open and black iron keys fell out, shining brightly. The blood fountain stagnated in beads. He grabbed the key to enter the car, slowed down, and the zombies came to life. Qin Feng's eyes widened, and his voice trembled as if he saw a demon. Time stops. The queen's corpse is like a turtle, your axe cuts the carapace like paper. Black iron key hand. Lin Fan, you fucking king of doom, I kneel down. Bai Ning's arms were wrapped in gauze, and he hugged Lin Fan's arms with tears in his eyes. The smell of body fragrance mixed with medicine hit his nostrils. Save me, you foresee everything, God. The infection has stopped, I love. Lin Fan pushed her away and said coldly, say alive. Qin Feng, pierced the road. Lin Fan tapped the intercom with his fingers. Static electricity squirmed like maggots. Mu Xue's voice pierced the night again, with a metallic calmness. Lin Fan, the signal is locked to your supermarket fortress. I am waiting alone in the abandoned warehouse at the east gate of the Science and Technology Park. Bring the scroll, otherwise I will send a warning of the corpse wave to Lu Ting. He has hundreds of people sniffing arms. You smell. The intercom snapped, and the clang of the white iron rod echoed under the sentry tower. His face was as pale as wax, and fear surged in his eyes. Scientist. Trap. Lin Fan, she knows our location, but we have enough supplies, but the corpse is so close, how can we trust her? But the ambush exploded. The motorcycle engine howled, and more than 10 of Lu Ting's remnant soldiers rushed out of the side alley. Rifles fired bullets, and the night was scorching with fire. Lu Ting, who was leading the team with his broken leg wrapped in gauze, smiled ferociously and pointed his gun at Mu Xue, scientist. The scroll has been solved. I have 2 keys, red crystal and blue liquid. Traitor Qin Feng, catch him alive. The bullet grazed Qin Feng's shoulder and blood mist exploded. He threw himself on the ground and shouted, you bitch. Where are you with hundreds of people? I will kill you for Lin Fan. Mu Xue was dragged screaming, and the syringe fell to the ground and shattered. She finally shouted, Lu Ting's 2 keys. We are here to kill him, he plans to burn the fortress. Lin Fan slowed down and fired again, twisting his body and killing 2 gunmen. The axe blade cut his throat and drew blood, but Lu Ting dragged Mu Xue onto the motorcycle, accelerator to escape, and the red snake swallowed the night. The pursuit was fruitless, the truck returned to the fort, and the aftermath of the corpse wave roared far away. Qin Feng smashed the wall and laughed wildly, but his eyes were full of admiration. Lin Fan, destroy the tide, snatch the key, and ambush Tu San. Mu Xue is lost, but the power is rising, the black iron is in hand, I call the old troops. Bai Ning's arm recovered from the injury, and threw herself into Lin Fan's arms, her lips trembling and tears wet his chest. Escaped from death, you saved me, always follow. Lin Fan stroked her hair, and glanced at the fortress with cold eyes. The wire was double-layered, the sentry tower machine gun was set up, and the supplies were searched for the blue liquid of the pharmacy. The power was just beginning. But the intercom rang with static, and Lu Ting laughed hoarsely. Lin Fan, black iron praise. 2 keys and Mu Xue, I will hunt you down and burn your fort tomorrow morning. Restart. I'll wait. Prediction flash, hundreds of people in flames, betrayal of the traitor. Crisis is like a knife, the night wind carries the smell of corpses, and the lights of the fortress are swaying. The night wind was like a knife, carrying the smell of corpses and scorched earth into the cracks of the fortress. The blood droplets condensed on the barbed wire rolled down under the warning lights and cracked into pieces. Lin Fan held the fire axe tightly. The green juice from the queen's corpse was still bubbling on the axe blade, reflecting Bai Ning's tear-stained face. She clung to his chest, breathing as fast as a bellows, and the gauze on her arm wound oozed faint bloodshot. Lin Fan, Lu Ting's 100 people. We have 60 rounds of ammunition left, and the machine gun frame will be welded to death for an hour. Who did the ghost say in advance? Qin Feng. The shoulder wound was stained with blood on his sleeves, and the bayonet stabbed into the concrete floor, making a sharp scraping sound. His copper bell eyes scanned the darkness, and his voice was as low as thunder. There is a corpse cellar in my old department, and the fortress gate code has been leaked. Lin Fan, God, you say, fight? Foreknowledge is like an ice needle pricking the brain, the sea of fire at dawn. The inner ghost opens the door, Lu Ting's rocket launcher burns the warehouse, Mu Xue is forced to show the way, all 4 keys fall into the enemy's hands, and restart. But there is no way out. Lin Fan said coldly, guard. Qin Feng, the machine gun is pressing down on the alley. Bai Ning, the shotgun tower sniper is taking the lead. I slow down and control the situation. The smell of flour from the compressed biscuits in the air has been replaced by corpses, water bottles are spilled, and the liquid pools on the cement to form a scarlet stream. The low roar of engines in the distance is approaching, like a herd of beasts approaching, and the light spots of torches are spreading across the horizon like will-o'-the-wisps. The first gunshot ripped through the gray fog of dawn, bullets whizzed past the sentry tower, and iron filings flew and burned. Qin Feng pulled the machine gun, the bullet belt roared and spit out tongues of fire, corpses roared and people screamed, severed limbs flew and hit the wall, and the blood mist filled the air like red gauze. But the enemies are as numerous as ants. Lu Ting's remaining soldiers are equipped with rocket launchers. Boom! Gaps exploded in the barbed wire fence of the fortress, flames licked the shelves, cans burst and scalding juices splashed out, and the burnt smell hit your nostrils and choked your lungs. Bai Ning's shotgun roared, blasting an enemy's head, and his brain splashed sticky on her cheeks. She screamed, Lin Fan, burn the water source. Explode all 38 bottles. Qin Feng thrust out his bayonet and pierced the belly of an enemy, his intestines were hot and slick and dragged the floor. He yelled, bastard. I recognize you, Wang Ermatzi, selling your brother for a gun. The Ghost King's face was twisted, and the muzzle of the gun was pointed at Qin Feng's heart. Survive at the end of the day. God, Lin Fan. It's just corpse food. The melee was stalemate. Lin Fan slashed 3 enemies with his axe, slowed down and activated. The air around him was distorted for 3 seconds, the enemy's gun barrel froze and the bullet casing jammed, his throat was cut and his blood was drawn. But the second rocket launcher hit the warehouse directly, and the explosion shock wave overturned him. Flames engulfed the mountain of supplies. The blue bottle of antiviral medicine shattered. The green mist intertwined with the firelight, burning his lungs as if swallowing charcoal. Bai Ning rushed to protect him, hitting the ghost's head with a shotgun. The wooden stick shattered and then broke her arm. The green juice infected the black silk and she screamed in pain, Lin Fan, live. Lu Ting leaned on the motorcycle with his broken leg, pointing the gun at Mu Xue with a ferocious smile. Her glasses were broken and her face was blurred with blood. She was tied to the front row and yelled, Lin Fan, restart to save me. The second level, alien. The rocket launcher fired the 3rd time, the world burned into the sea. Lin Fan's vision was red and black, his heartbeat was like a drum, and death was swallowed up coldly. At midnight, the lights in the supermarket were dazzling. Lin Fan opened his eyes suddenly, his back was wet with sweat, and his heart was beating like thunder. Familiar with the shelves, stacked cans, condensation in water bottles, no blood, no corpses. But there are memories in my mind, the 3rd round, the siege and burning of the fort, the 2nd floor of Mu Xue, the inner Ghost King 2, the southeast of the ruins of Lu Ting's camp, and the 3 keys in hand. The sheepskin of the scroll was blood-red and squirming. He grabbed a fire axe, a 6-round revolver, an AK full of ammunition and 100 rounds. His backpack was stuffed with cans of water and a wire rope was rolled around his waist. This round, save Mu Xue, seize the key, and build momentum. There are no dead ends. The corpses roared faintly outside the night, the virus fog filled the streets, and the rotten stench was like a sea of shit. The engine roared, and the modified truck crushed the bones and made a sound. He dived alone and predicted. Qin Feng met Bai Ning in the supermarket, and they separated after recruiting. Arriving at the abandoned supermarket before dawn, the rusty iron door creaked open. Qin Feng's muscular figure swung a stick and smashed the corpse's head, and his brains splashed on the wall. He gasped and stared. Boy. You, restart the apocalypse? I've been hungry for 2 days, and I can smell your biscuits for thousands of miles. The white stick locked the throat of the fake corpse, and the crumbs flew away, and she turned around with a pale face, fear swirling in her eyes. Lin Fan. Countless times. I believe you. Lin Fan threw away 3 boxes of compressed biscuits, 10 bottles of water, and 5 bottles of medicine. The smell of flour filled her nose and spleen, and she burst into tears. God. The fortress burned me to death, and the infection hurt, do you remember? With no time to be gentle, Lin Fan unfolded the scroll and said coldly, Mu Xue and Lu Ting come to the rescue. Qin Feng, attract fire from the front and burn their supply truck. Bai Ning, submersibly destroy the oil barrels and ammunition. I will save people from within and predict the situation. The inner ghost king heir will kill without mercy. Qin Feng chewed biscuits, his mouth was shiny, and his eyes were exposed when he sharpened his bayonet. Fanatical, I know the way from the old camp. Front. The tiger is among the sheep. Girl, use the stick to lock the throat, and the oil barrel will explode. Bai Ning's shotgun was loaded with a click, and the bullet shell was crisp. She held Lin Fan's hand and trembled. Escape from death, follow closely, I love you. The air was suppressed, the corpses roared closer, and the mist seeped into the skin and became cold and sticky. The ruins of the military camp are hidden in the north of the Science and Technology Park. Torches are swaying along the iron wire fence. Hundreds of people are whispering in the tents. The smell of gun oil mixed with sweat is astounding. Lin Fan slowed down and sneaked, his whole body twisted, and the barrel of the guard's gun froze. He cut his throat silently, and his blood dripped to the ground. Inside the tent, Mu Xue is tied to a chair, her eyes as sharp as an eagle behind her glasses. Lu Ting's broken leg is wrapped in gauze and leaning on the table. 3 keys are flashing, red crystal military camp deep, blue liquid pharmacy-like, metal fist big cold iron. He stabbed her arm with a syringe and green liquid dripped down. Scientist, 2nd level of solution. Otherwise, the corpse will be eaten. Mu Xue gritted her teeth. Lin Fan is here. King of reincarnation. There was an explosion outside. Qin Feng's bayonet roared at the camp gate, and machine gun fire rained down. He was shot twice in the body and burst into blood mist, but he threw himself at the supply truck. The bayonet hole was in the oil barrel, gasoline was poured on the ground and the torch was detonated. A sea of fire roared into the sky, the smell of burnt meat filled the air, and the enemy soldiers screamed and rolled to the ground, with their skin and bones cracked. Traitor Qin Feng. Burning my arms. Lu Ting roared. Bai Ning dived to the side, hitting the ammunition box with a stick, and the bullets scattered on the ground and got stuck in the wet mist. Her shotgun blasted the oil barrels and exploded continuously. The flames licked the sky, and the enemy was reduced to porridge. Lin Fan slowed down and fired again. Within 3 seconds, he slashed the 4 defenders with his axe. He jumped into the tent and slashed the barrel of Lu Ting's gun with his axe. His broken leg was frozen in the twisted air, and the red crystal blue liquid metal key gripped his hand. Mu Xue's eyes widened and her voice trembled as if she had seen a ghost. Time has stopped. God of Samsara. You predict everything. Lin Fan cut the rope and pulled her, second level. She fluttered the scroll with her fingers, and the ancient text appeared with blood, alien experiments. Meteorites carry viruses, not natural disasters. 2 empty escape cabin B3, lift off and break the curse. All 4 keys, code 397, trap and reincarnation. Lu Ting came to life with his broken leg and screamed, keep 1 key. Lin Fan hit his head with a revolver, and his head exploded with red mist. He fell to the ground and twitched, taking all the metal keys. Qin Feng rushed like a tiger to clear the way. His bayonet stabbed the corpses in his abdomen, and his intestines dragged on the ground and squirmed and splashed with fish. He shouted to cover the motorcycle and rushed out, Sister Sniper. Mu Xue's medicine explodes. Bai Ning borrowed Mu Xue's shotgun and sniped 3 corpse eyes from a distance. Brains flew like rain. She was excited. Lin Fan, I look like you. The lair is destroyed, the black iron key is obtained, the truck breaks out of the square, and the roar of corpses fades away. Time loop, restart. The breakout was chaotic, blood flowed from Qin Feng's shoulders and arms, and the bayonet dragged the intestines of 3 corpses. He saw Lin Fan roaring, King. Grab all the keys. Mu Xue save me, I will blow up the camp. Bai Ning's arm was bruised and covered with black silk, and his eyes were filled with tears. Lin Fan, speed. Oil bombs destroyed, the enemy collapsed. The truck engine roared, crushing the corpses and escaping the camp. The fire was soaring from behind, and the corpses roared into the enemy camp taking advantage of the chaos, biting and screaming incessantly. During the break between the tide of corpses at dawn, the team infiltrated the ruins of the drug bureau. Neon fragments flashed with will-o'-the-wisps, and the claws of corpses scratched the wall with the sound of thousands of fingernails scratching. The deep cabinet door code of the pharmacy was entered, and it clicked open. The blue liquid key flashed green, but the alarm was blaring, and the underground nest exploded. The mutated boss beast is like a tank, with a 4-meter-tall carapace and poisonous stinger spray, and the smell of green juice and rotten bones reaches the sky. Qin Feng's bayonet pounced, his armor pierced his shoulder, and he spurted out blood and roared, hard as iron. Lin Fan, God's cut. Bai Ning's shotgun exploded, brains splashed on her sticky face, and she screamed, the poisonous mist burns my lungs. I can't hold on. Returning to the fortress, we re-welded the wire and took inventory of supplies, 20 cans left, 25 water, 10 bottles of medicine, 5 doses of green liquid, and 40 rounds of AK left. The 4 keys shine, and Lin Fan is equipped with Qin Feng rifle, Bai Ning shotgun refill, and Mu Xue syringe to refine medicine. Mu Xue pushed up her glasses, her eyes showing admiration. In the B3 experimental building, the space capsule requires 4 keys to open. The 3rd key. The deep cabinet of the blue liquid pharmacy. I know the code is July 15, 2050, the meteorite day. But the depression did not dissipate, and a premonition flashed, explore the ruins of the boss, and a thunderstorm destroys the fortress. Lin Fan decelerated to the limit, his whole body twisted for 5 seconds, his axe slashed the boss' spine and armor, his internal organs exploded with blue liquid, and green blood spurted out like rain. He grabbed the key and brought it back. The boss died and the earth trembled. The lair collapsed and the dust filled his nose. Mu Xue's eyes widened, her voice trembling like a leaf in the wind. 5 seconds to stop. An axe to chop a tank, Doomsday God. You are inhumane. Qin Feng knelt down to bind his wounds, laughing wildly and crying, King. I, the boss is like a pig. Bai Ning embraced Lin Fan, kissing his neck with trembling lips, rescued 4 times, will always be yours. The force was first established, and the ruins were recruited. More than a dozen survivors had hungry ghost eyes, and they knelt down when they saw the mountain of supplies, and the canned incense lured their souls. Lin Fan Bao. Water and Medicine Division, Patrol Division, 5 sentry tower machine guns, 3 warehouse managers, 2 corpse hunters. Qin Feng shouted the order, the iron rod hit the ground. Authority, the newcomer trembled, God leader. The hungry ghosts will see Jin Shan in the Doomsday. The fortress is double-layered with iron wire, the machine gun rack is welded firmly, and the oil barrel traps are covered. But natural disasters are ruthless. After the tide of corpses recedes, black clouds overwhelm and thunder booms. Lightning struck the sentry tower, iron wires exploded with sparks, machine gun racks melted and dripped iron juice, rain poured down and corpses mixed with blood formed rivers, facilities were half destroyed, water sources were swollen and cans became moldy and smelly. The survivors cried, thunder destroys the fort. Lu Ting comes to swallow it. Qin Feng smashed the wall and punched blood, hold on. The king is here. Bai Ning wrapped Lin Fan in the rain, his body trembling, dangers pile up. God, hold tight. The remnants of the thunderstorm had not dissipated, and raindrops flowed down from the iron roof of the fortress like bloodshot threads, mixed with the sour smell of moldy cans, entering every nostril, choking the newly recruited survivors to huddle in the corner, their hungry eyes flashing green in the embers of the brazier, like hungry wolves staring at the only 20 cans left in Lin Fan's backpack. The machine gun rack of the sentry tower was melted into a twisted iron mass, dripping with iron juice and making a sizzling sound. Green mold floated on the swollen water bottle, and it felt as sticky as corpse skin. Qin Feng was wrapped in a blood-stained shoulder cloth, and his bayonet stabbed into the concrete floor, making a harsh sound. His copper bell eyes swept over the newcomers, and his voice was like thunder, you dogs, you cry when thunder destroys the fort. I'm still standing with a hole in my shoulder. King Lin Fan is here, who dares to run away? The black silk infection marks on Bai Ning's arms were aching. She hugged her chest tightly, her pale face pressed against Lin Fan's arms, and she whispered tremblingly, God, water mold is coming, there are only 10 bottles of medicine left, the newcomers have wrong eyes, hungry ghosts will bite. Mu Xue pushed up her repair glasses, and the green liquid sample swayed and glowed in the syringe. The scroll was flying with her fingers, and the ancient text was squirming in blood, for keys complete, black iron, red crystal, blue liquid metal, fully activated space capsule defense system. B3 code 397, underground of the alien experimental building, lifted off to break the curse. But there are many traps, the mole refers to. Lu Ting broadcast, the second mole. Among the newcomers, a thin man, Li Guzi, was hungry, licking his lips and staring at the can, muttering, God Lin Fan. Thunder destroyed the fort, and Lu Ting's army came to take it. Give me the key, and it will be difficult for one person to survive in the end. His words were like a poisonous sting, and everyone was buzzing with whispers. Newcomer A glared at Lin Fan, you are taking all the supplies. We have been hungry for 2 days, and the corpses are dead. If you don't have enough food, you'll surrender to Lu Ting. The air was stagnant, the smell of hunger mixed with the smell of rain, and human nature emerged like mud. Qin Feng swung his bayonet and scared the newcomer back, Seller. I'll chop off your tongue. Lin Fan's mind flashed like an ice blade, the night attack on the outpost was successful and the intelligence was obtained. However, Li Guzi contacted Lu Ting via radio and the main force of rockets besieged them, completely destroying them and restarting. The psychological game was like a tidal wave, and veins popped out in his hand holding the axe, and he thought, in the 4th round, the 4 keys are in hand, the fortress is half destroyed and weak, the newcomers are as greedy as ants, one kill shocks the other, and leaves a living mouth to build up the momentum. No, there is no faith in the Doomsday, foreknowledge of betrayal, killing Li Guzi to cut off the roots, but Qin Feng, Bai Ning and Mu Xue are seriously injured, and the night attack is risky, who will be sacrificed. Bai Ning's passionate kiss appeared in his eyes, and he gritted his teeth, protect your loved ones, suppress your brothers, strategize with scientists, fight back first, and destroy the evildoers. He yelled in a cold voice, Li Guzi, selling Baodian Lu Ting. Kill. With a flash of axe, the green juice boss cut down with a bloody blade. Li Guzi's head rolled to the ground, a hot blood fountain splashed on the newcomer's face, hot and sticky. They screamed and retreated, wide-eyed and trembling. God, decapitated with an axe. Not for sale. Follow forever. Qin Feng laughed wildly and patted his shoulder. King is ruthless. I love this taste. The new dog obeys orders, otherwise the intestines will drag on the floor. Suppression burst, everyone knelt down to worship, hungry eyes turned to worship. Lin Fan unfolded the scroll and calmly laid out, Lu Ting's outpost, south of the ruined iron factory, rocket magazine information. Night attack, Qin Feng led 5 fierce men to burn the door from the front. I slowed down and cut inside. Bai Ning Mu Xue dived from the side and fried oil to seize weapons to replenish the warehouse. The newcomers guarded the fort and patrolled, and the oil barrel traps were redeployed. Hunting mutant beasts to replenish meat, boiled green medicine to remove mold. Mu Xue's eyes lit up with admiration. The god of reincarnation is as wise as an alien AI. Did you predict that? Bai Ning held his hand and said, Shen Miao. I love him to death. Qin Feng's bayonet was sharpened. Tiger enters the wolf's den. I challenge my deputy Zhang Meng to prove my loyalty. There is no time to talk. The night is like ink, the roar of corpses is faint, and the rotten mist seeps into the seams and becomes cold and sticky on the skin. The engine of the modified truck roared, bones were crunching as it was crushed in the streets. The torch at the iron factory outpost was swaying. The smell of gun oil and sweat hit your nostrils. 30 enemy soldiers whispered, and there were mountains of rocket launchers. Qin Feng jumped down, his muscled figure was like a ghost, waving his bayonet and shouting, Lu Ting dog. Burn your ancestral graves. The machine gun bullets rained down on him. He was hit by bullets and sprayed with blood, but he threw the door and kicked the brazier over. The flames licked the oil barrel and exploded continuously. The smell of burnt meat filled the air. The enemy soldiers rolled to the ground and screamed with charred bones and bones. Bai Ning and Mu Xue dived to the side. The shotgun club smashed into the oil pipe, gasoline was poured on the flames, and the explosion shock wave kicked up the corpse and choked the lungs with dust. Lin Fan slowed down and started. The air around him was distorted for 5 seconds. The guard's gun barrel froze and jammed. He cut his throat with an axe and drew blood without making a sound. He got a box full of information books and AK ammunition belts in the inner warehouse, thinking, I got the rocket map, the B3 path marker, Lu Ting's hidden laboratory in the northeast. But the prediction stings the brain, Li Guzi. No, if he dies, the second mole, newcomer B. Mutation. The radio buzzed, and Lu Ting's hoarse smile echoed, Lin Fan. The inner ghost has reported his position, and the outposts are surrounding you. The main force of 50 motorcycles approached with a rocket net. The engines roared like thunder, and the tail of fire dragged the night sky. Enemy soldiers poured out from a dark corner. Newcomer B's face twisted and his gun pointed at Lin Fan's heart. Bao starved to death. Lu Ting gave me meat. The ugliness of human nature broke out, and hunger devoured loyalty. Qin Feng's bayonet pounced, piercing the enemy's intestines and dragging them to the ground. He yelled, another traitor. I'll chop him. Bai Ning's shotgun blasted the newcomer B's head, and his brains splashed sticky on her face. She screamed, God. Hundreds of rounds of missiles. Mu Xue's syringe stabbed the enemy's neck with green liquid and melted the corpse. The flesh and bones were succumbing to pus and the stench rose to the sky. She trembled, God of Samsara, run away. The desperate situation is overwhelming, and Lin Fan's psychological game is on fire. Slow down to full speed, save 4 people and escape, but restart after running out of ammunition. No, for rounds of experience, B3 is close, sacrifice the local part to win the overall situation. He yelled, slow down and follow. Time was twisted to the limit of 10 seconds. The surrounding world was like jelly, the enemy motorcycles were frozen in the sky, and the rocket tail flames were still. He slashed the tires with an axe and exploded. The red mist exploded from the revolver driver's head. The AK bomb chain poured out, and the enemy soldiers were jammed and frozen corpses fell like a forest. After dragging the 4 people back to the truck, they slowed down and dispersed. The world around them came to life. There was an explosion and a roar at the rear of the truck. The flames licked the rear of the truck and the smell of burnt black hit your nostrils. Qin Feng's eyes widened, his blood-stained face trembled wildly. "King, 10 seconds to stop. The enemy is frozen butchering pigs. I see God." Bai Ning burst into tears, her lips kissed her neck trembling. "Save the 4th generation quickly. Eternal love." Mu Xue's eyes expanded after her glasses, and her voice was like a leaf in the wind. "Inhuman. Alien king of reincarnation. Information booklet, Lu Ting's laboratory is open." During the breakout, Lu Ting's deputy Zhang Meng blocked the road with a motorcycle. His tall figure had a bayonet like a hook, and the green liquid on his broken arm healed itself. He smiled ferociously. "Qin Feng, traitor. I will challenge him to prove his loyalty." Qin Feng jumped out of the car, blood spurted from his shoulder wound, bayonets met bayonets, sparks splashed against metal and screamed. Zhang Meng's hook scratched the skin of his arm, and the smell of intestines loomed. Qin Feng roared and rushed forward, his knees and abdominal bones cracked, and hot blood gushed from the bayonet hole. He dragged the body back to the car, knelt in front of Lin Fan with blood and tears. "King. Deputy 2, proof of loyalty. I will stay with you for the rest of my life, and it's worth losing my arm." Lin Fan patted his shoulder, and the heart game eased. "Brothers are iron-blooded, and the situation is stable." The newcomer knelt down after hearing the news. "Brother Qin is so brave. The God King of Fortress." The truck returned to the fort, and the information booklet was spread out: 50 rockets, 2 boxes of AK ammunition belts, and the green liquid formula. Supplies were in short supply. There were 15 cans left, 20 water and 15 after the mold was gone. Lin Fan gave a cold order: "Hunt. To the east of the mutated beast's nest street, meat to supplement the food supply." The team was dispatched, neon fragments flashed, and thousands of fingernails scratched the wall. The lair exploded, the mutated wolves were as jealous as lights, their fangs dripped with green saliva and smelled like shit, and their claws rushed towards them and the wind howled. Lin Fan slowed down for 5 seconds, slashed the Wolf King's spine with an axe and unleashed a rain of blue blood, causing the wolves to disperse and howl. Qin Feng's bayonet slaughtered the group, and the intestines and stomachs dragged on the ground and became slippery. The white condensate shotgun blasted into the eyes and brain spattered, the green liquid of Mu Xue melted into 10 heads, and the bones and flesh turned into pus bubbles. The newcomer's eyes widened and trembled. The divine hunts wolves like pigs. The mountain of meat replenishes the warehouse, and the castle is forever solid. The skin and meat are peeled off, and the fresh blood is hot. The newcomer chews raw wolf legs and his mouth is shiny. Hungry turns to fanaticism, and the power snowballs. The ruins recruit hungry ghosts. He knelt down and shouted, "Lin Fan bow. A mountain of water, meat and medicine, 30 people will follow to death." The fortress was revitalized, with 3 layers of iron wire welded firmly, a rocket launcher tower, oil barrel traps densely covered, the aroma of wolf meat boiling pot was refreshing, and the moldy water was purified by green medicine. Late at night, Lin Fan sat alone in the brazier, with blood on his face reflected in the scroll, and the psychological game resumed. The potential expanded to 30, the 4 keys were in place, the intelligence rocket, but the foresight was like thunder and blasted the brain. In the end, the zombie wave broke out, thousands of beasts were like a sea, the black cloud never dispersed, Lu Ting's hidden laboratory was opened, the source of the alien virus was released, B3's front 1000. Weapons network, the insider third. His heart sank to the bottom, he held the axe and whispered, 5th round preparation, night attack B3, break the curse and lift off. There was faint thunder in the distance, corpse roars like a tide, the radio blared again, Lu Ting smiled grimly. Lin Fan, the laboratory is open, the virus king is awake, waiting for you to bury. Darkness pressed the situation, and the crisis knife hung. The heat of the wolf broth is still rising by the brazier, mixed with the smell of rust and the pungent bitterness of green medicine. It penetrates into the lungs like a knife. The 30 survivors in the fortress huddled beside the oil drum, scratching the bottom of the porcelain bowl with their chopsticks and making a shrill whine. Their hungry eyes reflected the green light in the firelight. Like hungry the ghost stared at the key bag on Lin Fan's waist, black iron, red crystal, and blue liquid. 3 of them were collected, but the metal key was hidden in Lu Ting's sleeve. Newcomer sees whisper spread, God King. The soup is as thin as water. Lu Ting's army is coming, and the rockets are burning the fort. Let's share the key to survive. His words filled the air like poisonous mist, and everyone stole them. The infected black lines on his arms were itchy like thousands of ants gnawing at the bones. A strong new man smashed the bowl and yelled, "Are you keeping the supplies alone? My legs have been rotten for 3 days, and the corpses are not as good as surrendering to Lu Ting and eating artillery shells to replenish the stocks." The air condensed into the stench of cold mud, and humanity collapsed. On the edge of the crack, Qin Feng's bayonet poked the ground and sparks burst out. The blood-stained shoulder cloth ticked. His copper bell eyes were cracked. Cellar dog. I'll chop off your legs and make soup. Bai Ning's shotgun clicked, and his pale face pressed against Lin Fan's arm, trembling and whispering, God, predicts the circumference. The inner ghost is third, Bing's eyes are wrong. The prediction in Lin Fan's mind was like a blood thunder exploding. Before dawn, 100 people with a motorcycle rocket net plus a wave of mutant beasts besieged the fortress. The metal key Lu Ting personally held. The inner ghost opened the back door to release the wolf. The fortress was completely destroyed and restarted. His heart was crushed like iron pincers. The veins burst out while he held the axe. He looked coldly at everyone, and his voice was like tomb wind, surround and kill us, set up a trap. The 3 layers of oil barrels are connected with explosive lines, the Qin Feng pressure of the rocket tower, the white condensate sniper on the top of the tower, the Mu Xue green medicine mist transformed into a herd of beasts. Newcomer B patrols the back door, dare he sell his head? B's face twisted with sweat, and he knelt down and cried, God, Yongzhong. But the ice blade flashed, B's hidden sleeves, the betrayal of Lu Ting. There is no time to kill more, and the night is deeper. The engine roars in the distance like thousands of beasts stampeding, the roar of corpses surges into the nostrils, the sea of torches sways outside the fort, the fire tails of hundreds of enemy motorcycles trail the night sky, the red light of rocket launchers flashes, the red eyes of mutant wolves and pigs are like will-o'-the-wisps, and the claws scrape metal on the ground and scream. The siege breaks out. The rockets whizzed across the sky, the iron wires on the fortress walls were melted and sizzling with red juice, and the shock wave of the explosion kicked up dust that choked the lungs like fire. The newcomer screamed and backed away, his legs weak, and he knelt down. Lu Ting's hundreds of troops are beasts. The fortress is destroyed. Qin Feng jumped from the tower and fired bullets with his rifle. Chains poured down, the flames of the motorcycle exploded into the sky, and the smell of burnt meat filled the air. He roared like thunder, here come the dogs. I will slaughter hundreds of people. With his bayonet waving, he jumped down from the door and pounced on the Wolf King. The wind howled and clawed at his arms, tearing open the flesh and causing a fountain of blood. The wolf teeth bit his shoulder bones. There was a crack, and a rain of blue blood burst out from his knees and abdomen, and his stomach was hot and wet, and he laughed wildly. King, look. Qin Feng gate God. The enemy's rockets hit the tower and boomed, the tower shook and iron fragments rained down, the newcomer's eyes widened and trembled. Brother Qin broke his bones and slaughtered him. The citadel, don't fall. Bai Ning's shotgun on the top of the tower was accurate, and the red mist flew out of the driver's head. The motorcycle rolled and crushed the wolves, and the bones of her arms were burning. She bit her lip with blood and whispered, God. Thousands of beasts, rockets locked the tower. Mu Xue's syringe flew, the green liquid formula activated the atomizer, and the pungent sour mist sprayed outside the castle. The wolves and pigs inhaled the eye-exploding pus, and their flesh and bones melted like candles, and the yellow pus and stench rose to the sky. The beasts roared and wailed, and the eyes behind her glasses expanded and gasped, the magic medicine of reincarnation. Melt thousands of beasts. But there is a ghost inside. The back door was zippered, and the radio buzzed to announce its position. Lord Lu Ting, open the back door for the wolves to enter. The rest of the wolf pack pounced back, their claws scratching the wire and their nails scratching. The newcomer Ding pointed his gun at Bing and yelled, "Selling dog." Bing laughed fiercely and drew his gun, starved to death with God. Lu Ting's meat mountain. Human nature is ugly, and hunger devours loyalty. Lin Fan foresaw the early lock, the light of his axe flashed like a blood moon slash, the skull rolled to the ground and a fountain of hot blood splashed on the wolf's face, and the green juice boss blade melted the corpse's skin. He shouted coldly, "The third ghost slayer." The new guy seals the door and presses the rocket. Everyone knelt in a pool of blood, wide-eyed and trembling. God predicts the slaying of ghosts. Forever worship. Bao Tai. Lu Ting's main force pressed for the goal, his tall figure stopped on his motorcycle, and the bazooka was carried on his shoulder with a hoarse smile. The broadcast echoed, "Lin Fan. The fourth key is short of metal, I will kill it myself, the virus king wakes up, B3 will bury you." The metal key on his sleeve shone coldly, the self-healing scars of green liquid around his body squirmed, the enemy's rocket network locked the tower door, and the mutated pig hit the wall and shook the mountain. The oil barrels in the fort were set to explode continuously, the flames licked the sea of motorcycles and exploded continuously, the charred flesh and screaming zombies roared like a symphony of hell, the dust and smoke choked the nose and throat, the newcomer coughed up blood and knelt down in despair, the rockets burned out. God save! Lin Fan's heart was like a fire, decelerate to the 10-second limit, kill Lu Ting to save the key, but restart after exhaustion. No, the peak of 4 rounds, the trump card exploded. He shouted, "Decelerate the formation." The air around him was twisted and frozen, the world was still, the tail flames of enemy rockets froze the sky, the motorcycle tires were still, Lu Ting had a grim smile on his face, he danced with the axe and hit in a flurry, the revolver blasted Lu Ting's shoulders with red mist, the AK bullet chain swept away the enemy soldiers' frozen corpses like rice, the axe chopped the spines of pigs and burst into blue blood rain silently, dragged Qin Feng, Bai Ning and Mu Xue's newcomers back to the tower. Time revived. The world was in a frenzy, explosions reared up, flames licked the tower, and the black smell hit his nostrils. Lu Ting's shoulder hole spurted blood. His eyes widened as if he had seen a ghost, and his voice was trembling and hoarse, "You, stop the time God." Inhuman. The enemy's motorcycles exploded into a mountain of corpses, rockets self-destructed and burned their arms and legs as they rolled to the ground, wailing, and the remaining parts of the wolf and pig collapsed and fled howling in the melting fog. Qin Feng's blood stained the top of the tower, and the green liquid stopped the bleeding of his severed arm. The copper bell's eyes bulged and he knelt down in a frenzy, "King. Kill 110 seconds. Kill the enemy by freezing pigs. I see an immortal." Bai Ning burst into tears and kissed her neck trembling, her lips were bloody and sticky, "Save the world quickly. I will love you to death. Forever." Mu Xue's glasses fell to the ground and shattered, and her blood-streaked eyes trembled in the wind, "Alien king of reincarnation. Decelerate to the limit, destroy the army." The newcomer Baiji stared in admiration, "God king, stop." Lu Ting staggered back, the green liquid injection self-healing shoulder hole was bubbling, he pulled out the bayonet and attacked Lin Fan with a grim smile, "The key changes your life." The wind of the knife slashed, Lin Fan's axe blocked the sparks and the metal screamed, the revolver blasted at close range, the abdominal bone cracked, and hot blood spattered his face, Lu Ting's knees went weak and he coughed black blood, and he wore a metal key. There was a cold light as it fell to the ground. Lin Fan stepped on the axe and sneered, "The fourth key. B3 is yours." Lu Ting was as jealous as a beast and shouted, "The virus king of the laboratory building protects me." He sprayed green smoke and escaped, and the rest of the motorcycle dragged him deep into the ruins of the iron factory in the northeast. The corpse roar covered the rotten mist seeping into the cold and sticky skin. Lin Fan holds the 4 keys in his bag, the scroll is full of blood, and the ancient text is crawling with a complete solution, B3 code 397, the source of the alien experimental virus. The space capsule is lifted off to break the curse. He shouted, "Chase! Destroy the base and expand the power to hundreds of people." The engine of the team truck roared and crushed the corpses, and the rocket tower pressed forward. The newly recruited hungry ghosts heard the news and knelt down, "God slaughter Lu Ting. Enter the fort with meat and potion." Snowballs rolled in the power, for layers of iron wire were welded together, the flesh of wolves and pigs was peeled off and cooked in a mountain of meat, the aroma was refreshing, and the moldy water was purified into a river by green potion. Chasing the iron factory, the torch of Lu Ting's base was shaking, the embers of the rocket warehouse were burned and the heat wave hit his face. The remaining enemy soldiers knelt down and screamed, "Escape from B3. The virus king's door is open." Qin Feng slaughtered the soldiers with a bayonet and the intestines were hot and slippery. Bai Ning's shotgun exploded and splashed brains, Mu Xue's green mist melted into the corpse and the stench of pus rose into the sky. Lin Fan's axe smashed the base host, the circuit exploded and sparks flew everywhere, and the virus pipeline broke and leaked green juice to the ground. They bombed the oil depot with continuous explosions and booms. Flames shot up into the sky and illuminated the night like blood. Lu Ting's figure disappeared deep into the northeast of the laboratory building. The iron door slammed shut and the smell of rust was strong. When the fortress returned, hundreds of people knelt down to greet them. The smell of brazier wolf meat was mixed with blood. The newcomers were chewing raw legs and their mouths were shiny. Their mouths were full of enthusiasm. The 4 keys of the gods are complete. The scrolls are all solved, the space capsule ascends and breaks the spell, and the golden soup of the castle is golden. Qin Feng knelt in front of Lin Fan with blood and tears, and raised his bayonet with a broken arm, "King. Kill the base, loyal to the first generation." Bai Ning hugged his arms and trembled. Kissing on the cheek, "God's love. I will always be with you when you lift off." Mu Xue picked up the fragments of glasses, her worshipping voice was like praying, "God of Samsara, B3 is close, 397 yards to open the cabin." Lin Fan unfolded the scroll and the blood light reflected on his face, the 4 key slots buzzed and activated, and the ancient text emerged, "Alien Experiment 2050 Meteorite Virus, lift off to escape the curse." My heart warmed slightly, and my 5th round of prediction flashed, but deep in the distant experimental building, blue light flashed faintly, like the pulsation of a star gate, the low mechanical hum of corpse roars, the red light of the alien guard's eyes lit up, the metal of the claw arm stretched out and made a sound, and the evil smile echoed in the darkness, "Intruder, the end of reincarnation." The crisis was like a knife hanging on the neck, and the night wind carried the rotten mist and was biting. The truck engine roared and rolled over the ruins of the iron factory. The tires sank into the green juice and putrefied mud and sizzled. The stench was like the intestines of a rotten corpse and penetrated the nose. Lin Fan held the 4 key pouch and buzzed in his hand. The bloodlight scroll pressed against his chest and was as hot as his heartbeat. The aroma of wolf meat from the brazier in the 100-man fortress was still lingering, but it could not suppress the blue light pulsing in the distant experimental building. The low mechanical buzzing was like the heart of hell, and the roar of corpses was mixed with the scratching of metal. Qin Feng's severed arm was wrapped in green liquid and dripped with black blood. His copper bell eyes were red and bulging, and sparks burst out when he stabbed the ground with his bayonet, "King. B3 alien ghost. I'll chop off the claws first." Bai Ning clenched his arm with a shotgun and the black silk was aching. His pale face pressed against Lin Fan's shoulder and trembled as he whispered, God, predicted guard. Blue light, red eyes, thousands of tentacles. Mu Xue picked up her glasses. The fragments were stuffed into his pocket, and the eyes behind his glasses expanded and he gasped, scroll of ancient texts, alien mechanical cabin, the core must be shattered before opening code 397. The newcomer 50 hungry ghosts huddled in the back of the truck, staring at the Roshan pot with hungry green eyes, whispering, the golden soup of the citadel, the king of B3 virus awakens. Lu Ting escapes inside, will he still die if he has all the keys? The night wind carried the rotten mist and was biting. The team approached the northeast iron door of the experimental building. Blue light leaked from the rusty door cracks. The machine buzzed as hard as a sawbone. The newcomer's legs were weak and mud splashed on his face. The strong newcomer Wu smashed the iron rod and yelled, the blue ghost is pulsating. The tentacle monster is rumored to eat 100 people. How can you die if the fortress is full? Surrender to the mainland Ting's remnants and eat rocket meat. The wind stabbed the skin of Wu's throat and the blood rolled down, cellar dog. The king stopped, god of time, chop off your tongue and make soup. Bai Ning's gun barrel poked Wu's eyes and burst into tears, God will never give up, forever worship. Lin Fan's brain predicted the explosion of blood and thunder. The iron door opened and a sea of tentacles rushed, thousands of metal arm whips smashed the bones, the blue light core hid the password. After Lu Ting's remnants of the rocket ambush, the virus king's little boss exploded with red rays and melted the flesh. With his heart clamped, he smashed the iron door with his axe and made a dent, sparks flying and heat waves hitting his face. He shouted coldly, the door is broken. Slow down the protective formation, the newcomer's oil barrel explodes the line to seal the road, Qin Feng stabs the core, Bai Ning Mu Xue's console searches the code. Everyone widened their eyes and trembled, God predicts the ghost. Rush. Debris from the iron door exploded like rain, piercing the skin, blue light shot out, dazzling like a knife, the smell of rotten rust mixed with motor oil choked the lungs, and a mechanical tentacle monster appeared, a huge metal spider body 10 meters high, thousands of tentacles whipping the air and whistling, the red light eyes fired lasers and sizzled in the black pit of the molten ground, and the hook blade at the end of the claw scraped the wall and metal screamed like a ghost. The tentacles attacked the team, whipping the newbie's sternum to pieces, spraying out blood mist. He rolled to the ground with a miserable howl, swallow the ghosts. The castle is destroyed. Qin Feng leaped forward and struck the base with his bayonet, causing sparks to explode. His arm was broken and the pain was like burning fire. But he shouted, I'll chop off 1,000 claws. The tentacles wrapped around the legs and dragged them into the air, the bones stretched and cracked, and blood rained down. The newcomer screamed and backed away, his legs weak and kneeling in a pool of blood, Brother Qin, 2 limbs are broken. If the machine is not dead, the spirit is useless. Bai Ning's shotgun exploded with bang bang. Red electric sparks splashed out, and the black silk on her arms exploded in pain. She bit her lip and bloodshot, God. Laser lock tower, melt thousands of soldiers. Mu Xue's green mist atomizer, sour and rotten mist wrapped in smoke and squirted again, her glasses fragments scratched blood on her hands, alien alloy. The medicine cannot be melted. Despair enveloped the crowd like mud, Lu Ting's hoarse broadcast echoed in the building, Lin Fan. The remnant rocket network, protect me from monsters, the virus king, B3 will bury your whole family. Predicting the flashing blood blade, Lin Fan's heart burned like fire, he slowed down and upgraded, and his trump card exploded after standing still for 20 seconds. He shouted, stationary protection. The air around him froze and twisted, and the world froze. The tentacles freeze in the air, the whip shadow freezes, the red-eyed laser freezes the light beam, Qin Feng's leg is broken and his face is frozen in pain, and the newcomer's blood mist hangs in the air like red beads. Lin Fan's axe danced wildly and slashed continuously. Blue electric sparks exploded silently when the axe touched the root. The revolver blasted the joints of the spider's body and exploded with red mist. The AK bullet chain swept away and fell like rice. He dragged Qin Feng back into the formation. The axe hit the red eye crystal and cracked the spider web. He teleported in front of the console. Mu Xue condensed in a frozen posture, punched the panel, and the sparks exploded. The password sequence appeared on the ancient screen, Space Capsule 397 plus biological lock. The kit needs to be optimized for launch. Time to revive. The world is violent, the tentacles smash into the sea and the ground is shaking, blue lightning is sizzling and burning metal is smelling, red eyes are exploding, red shots are spraying out, melting the wall, and black juice is flowing. The newcomer's eyes are wide open, as if seeing an immortal, kneeling in a pool of blood and shouting, God is still. Kill Qian Chu in 20 seconds. Brother Qin saves the leg, the console is shattered. Qin Feng's leg was broken and wrapped in green liquid, and he crawled to the ground with his eyes bursting into tears. Wang Jingshan. I still have immortal skills with my broken legs. Bai Ning's cheeks were bloody and sticky. Shenjing 20. I love you so much, I'm going to die. The fragmented eyes expanded and trembled, king of samsara stasis. Password 397 biological lock, space kit optimization, lift off and break the curse. Lu Ting's remnant rockets whizzed across the sky, the corridor burst into flames and tongues licked the sky, the heat wave burned the skin, the enemy soldiers laughed ferociously, God damn. The rocket burns the cabin. But Qin Feng the bayonet jumped up, the rifle bullet chain poured out, the frozen corpses of the enemy soldiers fell onto the motorcycles and exploded into a pile of corpses. The smell of burnt meat filled the air. He roared like thunder, here comes the mutilated dog. I will kill the party with one arm. The bayonet stabbed the enemy's throat with a fountain of blood, and he laughed wildly with his belly dragging on the ground. Wang Jing protects me, I will destroy the Ting party. The core of the monster was exposed to blue light pulsation, Lin Fan's axe whined and cracked when smashed, the internal gears clicked and shattered, blue juice leaked out of the ground and stuck to the shoes, the green mist of the snow sprayed wildly, the core melted and the yellow pus filled the sky, the white condensed shotgun exploded at close range and the red mist splashed on her face. She whispered, God, little the boss virus king is near. Lotion's mechanical buzzing became stronger, and the virus king's mini-boss appeared. The alien mechanical beast fused with the corpse, locked Lin Fan with red-eyed rays, stretched its tentacles with thousands of hook blades and roared in the air, and the rotten flesh was wrapped in metal and dripped with black juice, which was pungent and pungent. The boss clawed at Qin Feng's arm, bones cracked and blood spurted out. His knees and abdomen exploded, and Lan Guanyu silently roared, King! I blocked the boss. The newcomer knelt down and yelled in despair, Virus King melts the army. Shenjing is exhausted, restart the castle and die. Lin Fan predicted the upgrade and flashed, stasis locks the boss core, Qin Feng stabs and explodes. Stay still and explode again. The world froze, the boss's red eyes froze and shot, his claws froze in the air, Lin Fan's axe penetrated the body and cut the core and the sparks imploded, and the revolver blasted the eyes with red lightning and dragged the team back to the console. Resurrection is violent, the boss core explodes, blue fire shoots into the sky, gears rain down on the skin, and the red fire self-explodes and melts into the sea, the black pit expands, and the rotten flesh melts and drips with yellow pus, sticky like glue. The newcomers stared in admiration and shouted, Stand still and kill the king. The castle is immortal. Mu Xue's console knocked wildly, and the blueprint of the space capsule kit appeared on the screen, oxygen chamber, radiation suit, vitamin capsule, and food compressor. She roared, optimization. Transformation of supermarket supplies, green liquid to purify water and oxygen, compressed wolf meat cakes, and antiviral kits for hundreds of people. Bai Ning pressed forward with a shotgun, holding Lin Fan in his arms and bursting into tears, God, ascended to a new home, I love you to the end, and will be with you forever. Lin Fan held her hand firmly, and his lips were close to her ears, Ning, I promise my new home, break the curse and go to heaven, the Yong family. She kissed her cheeks with blood and trembled with tears, and everyone knelt in a pool of blood and worshipped. Suddenly, the broadcast pierced the thunderstorm, and Lu Ting's hoarse laughter echoed through the ruins. Lin Fan. The camp was burned and you snatched the key. I escaped, was seriously injured and summoned a new army. I hold the fourth metal key. The space capsule is on the B3 path, ambushing the rocket network, waiting for you to die. Mu Xue. The second one. Static electricity sizzled, premonition flashed, thousands of troops were in flames, betrayal was rising again, the black cloud persisted, and the knife hung from the neck. The console is fully unlocked, the 397 code plus biological lock embedded 4 keys are buzzing and activated, the blue door of B3 underground of the space capsule is pulsating, and the ancient screen flashes warning red words, start sequence lock, the final opportunity to return. Predicting the explosion of blood thunder, Lin Fan's eyes turned cold. At the end of the 5th round, the zombie wave plus meteorite disaster merged, the virus king's true form awakened, and the blue door opened a deep trap. The materials are optimized, the backpack is inflated with oxygen chambers, radiant clothing, compressed biscuits and green liquid kits are ready, the aroma of wolf broth mixed with blood refreshes the spleen, the newcomers are chewing raw legs and their mouths are shiny and their mouths are full of enthusiasm. The divine kid is launched. Jin Tangyong. But in the distance, the ground is shaking, and the roar of corpses is pouring into the cracks of rotten mist. Cold sticky skin, fire tails of meteorites in the night sky, thunderstorms roaring like a doomsday clock, deep in the blue door, a low and sinister laugh echoed, Reincarnator, the final trial, the virus's nest is open. The crisis knife hangs, the team holds the iron-blooded equipment, the engine roars and crushes the corpse into the depths of B3. The truck tires crush the broken bones and green mud of the ironworks ruins, making a sizzling and sticky sound like trampling on the internal organs. The low roar of the engine cannot suppress the roar of thousands of corpses in the distance. The waves of rotten flesh roll into the black mist and seep into the air. The stench is like the intestines of thousands of corpses exploding. In the night sky, the fire tail of meteorites pierced the thunderstorm clouds, roaring thunder whips cracked the ground, exploded into craters and scattered sparks, heat waves and lightning were dazzling and burned the skin, and the lights of the ruins of the city flickered like candles. The newlywed 50 hungry man huddled in the trunk, his green eyes staring at the bulging compressed biscuits in his backpack, his Adam's apple rolling and whispering, the magic kit is complete, the oxygen chamber radiation suit is always full. Thousands of corpses swallowed the city, meteorites burned the sky, and the fortress was destroyed. Qin Feng held a bayonet in one arm and wrapped the blood-stained green liquid around the base of his leg. I'm holding you back with one arm. Bai Ning hugged Lin Fan with a trembling hand. The gun barrel was pressed against her chest and her black scar was aching. She whispered with tear stains on her pale face, God, full of precognition. I will love you until I die, and I will be with you forever. Mu Xue's glasses were dripping with blood, and the back of her eyes expanded and she knocked on the fragments of the console, the blue door pulses, the 4-key slot buzzes, the last step of the 397 biological lock is activated, and the defense net starts to block the tide. Lin Fan predicted in his mind that blood thunder would explode like a sea of fire, a wave of corpses with thousands of green eyes locked on the blue door, a thunderstorm of meteorites smashing the roof into pieces, Lu Ting's final counterattack with a rocket sniper hidden in a dark alley, and the moment the virus king's true form clawed his way onto the cabin from the depths of B3. With his heart clamped, his eyes were as cold as blades, and he shouted coldly, the truck rushed to the blue door of B3. After Qin Feng suppressed it, the newcomer's oil barrel sealed the alley and exploded the corpse. Bai Ning Mu Xue entered the 4 keys at the console, and the radiation suit was fully released. The crowd widened their eyes and worshipped with trembling voices and roared, God predicts the natural disaster. The static god leads the sky. The truck engine roared and accelerated, and the tires the green juice sprayed on their faces when they got stuck in the mud, and the stench was pungent. The newcomers in the back box grabbed the 4-layer wire mesh and divided the biscuits frantically. The compressed pieces of oily wolf meat were crispy and fragrant, and the juice overflowed. They swallowed down their hungry throats and burst into tears. Jin Tangyong. The castle is immortal, and hundreds of people ascend to the sky. The edge of human nature's hunger and poison instantly turned into mad loyalty, and the iron rods smashed the oil barrels to divide labor like an army. Ambush and explosion in a dark alley on the way. The motorcycle engine screamed through the night, and Lu Ting's remnant party threw out more than a dozen rocket launchers with a ferocious smile. The flames licked the air and the heat wave burned the skin. The black smoke choked the lungs like the smell of burnt corpses. The leading strong man roared hoarsely, Lin Fan. Lord Ting's rockets will bury you Jingshan, B3 Virus King, protect me. The rocket trailed and exploded, and the side wheels of the truck exploded. The car body shook and tilted, and green mud splashed into the sky. The newcomers screamed and kneeled on the box. The remnant rocket network is resurrected? Qin Feng jumped with one arm. The rear bayonet swings like a windmill, rifle bullets pour down on the motorcycle, and the mountain of corpses explodes into a mountain of charred flesh and screams. He roars like thunder, Ting dog is the last. I cut off my limbs and slaughter them all. The bayonet stabs the enemy's belly and the hot slipper drags the ground, and the enemy soldiers stare wide-eyed and tremble. The voice cracked, Qin traitor, slaughtered with one arm. Monster. The rocket accidentally exploded and burned his arms and legs, rolling and wailing. Qin Feng grabbed the motorcycle and crushed his skull, smashed his brain and splashed red mist on the wall. The newcomer shouted in admiration, Qin's divine arm destroys the ambush. Wang Jing's divine protection. Lin Fan foresaw Lu Ting's figure in a flash lock. He was seriously injured, coughing up black blood and hiding in the back of the alley with a rocket sniper lock on his head. With his heart burned and calm, he jumped on the roof of the car and slashed the air with lightning. The static card was still suppressed, and he roared, Lu Ting. Get out. The figure teleported deep into the alley, and the axe blade reflected the cold light of thunder. Lu Ting appeared in the shoulder hole with cracked abdominal bones and green liquid was healing. But Lin Fan's revolver fired first, and the red mist exploded between his eyebrows. His brain splashed against the wall, sticky and smelly. Lu Ting's eyes widened, his body stiffened and he poured mud, his throat gurgled with black blood bubbles. Quiet. God. Lin Fan smashed his axe into his throat bone, and the hot blood fountain stuck to the soles of his shoes. He looked at the corpse coldly. The feud is over. The team truck approached, and the newcomers were behind. Xiang opened his eyes wide and worshipped and shouted, Prince kills the Thunder Lord. Rocket sniper kills instantly. The Doomsday King is invincible. Qin Feng knelt down with blood on one arm and burst into tears, the king's axe-like skill. My old master is dead, and the loyal will be reincarnated. Bai Ning pounced and kissed her cheeks, which were bloody and sticky and trembled. The gods will eventually take revenge. I love you so much that your new family will belong to you forever. The zombies attack in front of the blue door. Thousands of green eyes, the rotting fog seeped into the seams and became cold and sticky to the skin, the claws pounded against the iron door and the ground shook like a heartbeat. Thunderstorm meteorites hit the roof of the building, rubble rain stung the skin, and sparks hit the face, and the hum of machinery became stronger and the roar of the Virus King echoed in the depths. The newcomer knelt down in a pool of blood in despair, thousands of corpses plus the sky is smashed. The blue door is shattered, the power of the gods is dead. Mu Xue's eyes widened and her hands trembled as she embedded the 4 keys, black iron, red crystal, blue liquid, metal all entered the tank, buzzing like thunder, and the ancient screen of the console flashed with red light, defense activated. Biolock 397 was input, and she fingered the sequence wildly. The blue door pulsated and the blue grid opened. The electric arc whipped and whipped corpses, and the carrion was charred and black and smelly. Thousands of claws and broken bones rained down, and the meteorite hit the grid. The red mist evaporated and the heat wave struck back. The corpse's roar subsided in despair, and black juice dripped onto the shoes. The team stared and trembled, Mu Xue's magic code. The blue grid slaughtered thousands of corpses. The space capsule is alive. Qin Feng stabbed the corpse's head with a bayonet and burst out green pus, defense immortal net. The king's precognition is fully activated, and the castle ascends to the sky. Save the crowd before boarding. There were shouts and shouts in the blue gate grid. 30-year-old survivors crawled out of the underground B3 cage after breaking the lock. They looked at the supplies with a thin face and green eyes. They shouted at the supplies, "Meat pie. I'll take the radiation suit first." Human nature was ugly. The newcomers, the brawny men from the remnants of the W party, roared, "Give me an oxygen chamber, or you'll bite your throat." The iron rods smashed against each other, blood sprayed, and they roared like wolves. Lin Fan glanced coldly, predicting that the inner ghost was lurking, and he shouted, "Full optimization kits. Green liquid purified water biscuits are all available, loyal ones will always be full, traitors will be killed." Bai Ning's shotgun barrel poked Wu into tears, "God will not give up, kneel down." Qin Feng stabbed his throat with a bayonet and broke the blood beads, "The seller is dead." Mu said the compressed cake in the snow radiation clothes was bright and fragrant, and the survivors swallowed the juice and burst into tears, kneeling in the mud, "God's material is eternal." 30 worshipped the king of stillness. The poisonous fog of humanity dissipated, the 130 fanatic worship roared, the door was sealed with iron wires, the remaining bombs of the rocket tower suppressed the array, the aroma of wolf meat soup mixed with blood refreshed the spleen and warmed the body. Lin Fan stood in front of the blue door, recalling countless rounds like a sea of blood, the first round of starving to death in the ruins, corpse claws tearing out throats and hot blood spurting out, the second round of Lu Ting's rockets burning the camp, tongues of fire licking the skin and scorching the smell, the third round of tentacles and sea whips smashing bones, blue lightning flying around and burning the lungs, the fourth round of stillness awakening for 20 seconds to kill the king. Unlocking all the secrets of foresight. The pinnacle of abilities, freezing the world in stasis, instant kill with axe, predicting blood and thunder like a god, getting 1 point stronger every round of death, and the status of the Doomsday King is ironclad. Bai Ning hugged her warm arms and whispered, "God laughs after countless deaths. I love you, reincarnation heart, death." Qin Feng knelt in a pool of blood and beat his chest with one arm, Wang's immortal skill. "I have reached the peak of my broken limbs, loyal to the first generation." Mu Xue picked up the fragments of the screen and worshipped with eyes, the peak of reincarnation. The alien 2050 meteorite experiment, the source of the virus B3 nest, the space capsule breaks the curse and lifts off. The newcomer in his 30s widened his eyes and worshipped, still God's memories. 100 rounds of slaughter, salute. The blue light pulsating in the space capsule is as warm as a mother's womb, the oxygen cabin hums and the air is fresh and tangy, the silver light of the radiant clothing wraps the body and relaxes the muscles, the vitamin capsules are lined up in rows and sparkle with hope, and the mountains of compressed biscuits are shiny and attractive. The newbies were chewing cakes and packing them enthusiastically, their backpacks were bulging with medical kits and green liquid atomizers, and 2 boxes of rocket ballast bottoms were made of iron. The team filed into the cabin, their footsteps clanging against the metal plate and the sound of buzzing. The blue door slowly closed and the electric grid protected the outside. The roar of corpses and thunderstorms were isolated like a dream. Lin Fan finally glanced at the crowd and promised with hot eyes, "Break the curse on the new home, forever family." Bai Ning kissed her lips hotly, "God, love forever." Qin Feng saluted with blood and tears with one arm, "King. I am chasing the sky with my legs." Mu Xue knocked on the final screen, "Start the sequence lock, the final chance to make a comeback." The hatch is about to close, and the bloody thunder explodes, before the truth about the alien is revealed, the time curse rages. The world is frozen and twisted, Lin Fan's heart is burning, and the shadow of death is beating on his chest, the true body of the virus king penetrates the bulkhead with his claws and locks his soul with red eyes, and the restart bell pierces his brain. But at the peak of the stillness, he danced wildly with his axe and locked the soul shadow. Everyone was frozen and stared in admiration. The blue door clicked shut, and the low roar of the lift-off engine shook the ground like thunder. The black shadow shattered and the blood mist imploded, and Lin Fan growled, "Curse, break." The cabin trembled to the sky, thunderstorm meteorites brushed against the window and the heat wave hit the window, the zombies shrank into black spots, and the ruins of the city were as bright as candles. The team revived and roared, "Take off. God breaks the curse and ascends." Bai Ning burst into tears and kissed, "New home, love." But the deep cabin B3 brood echoed with a low and ferocious smile, "Reincarnators, the final trial, the truth about alien experiments, the source of the meteorite virus, escape. The brood is with you." The crisis knife hangs, the blue light pulsation becomes stronger, the alien truth is on the verge, the remnants of the time curse are buzzing and trying to restart. The engine of the space capsule roared like the heartbeat of a giant beast, vibrating the metal wall and humming to the bone marrow. The pulsating blue light reflected the faces of everyone and distorted them into ghost shadows. The oxygen cabin sprayed out fresh mist mixed with a faint smell of blood and putrefaction. The thunderstorm clouds outside the window tore apart. The tail of meteorite fire whipped the cabin like a whip shadow. The heat wave seeped through the window and burned the skin. The 180 survivors huddled beside the life-saving capsules, their hungry green eyes focused on the mountain of compressed biscuits. The aroma of oily wolf meat mixed with green liquid and purified water was sweet and tangy, but their atoms apple rolled and they whispered, "Dream of liftoff." The B3 brood roars. The virus king is accompanying him, swallowing all the broken cabins. The newcomers, the remnants of the brawny five, crawled closer to the radiation with a ferocious smile. There was a pile of clothes, claws clawing at the silvery fabric, and the sound of tearing, green eyes bulged. "The magic trick will never be full. I will grab the oxygen chamber first and kill the unfaithful." The ugliness of human nature exploded, iron rods were smashed against each other, blood mist splashed on the wall, and the walls were red and sticky. Screams and wails were like wolves tearing flesh, biscuit crumbs were scattered and trampled into mud, and the green liquid atomizer in the medical box was dumped, choking the nose and lungs. Qin Feng kneeled on the bottom of the bilge with blood on one arm, his broken leg was wrapped in green liquid and was in pain like fire. His eyes were red and his hair was bulging, and he was gasping for breath. The bayonet on his throat was torn and blood was rolling on his skin, cellar dog. "Wang Shinkong's new home, you rob it. I'm killing him with one arm." 100. But he was seriously injured, and the 5 members of Party E punched him, breaking his arm and cracking the bones. He groaned and fell into a pool of blood, roaring hoarsely, "Wang. I can't stop it, human nature is poisoned." Bai Ning's shotgun barrel shook and he held his arms. Lin Fan, her black silk scars ached with hot blood sticking to her clothes, her pale face was stained with tears and blood, and she whispered and trembled, "God, the brood is roaring near, time is buzzing and piercing the brain, the curse is restarting. I love you to pieces, everyone betrays me and I die." Mu Xue's glasses shards are dripping on her hands, her eyes are widening, she picks up the broken screen of the console and taps, but the screen flashes a red alert during the finger dance sequence. B3 brood fusion rate is 87%, the virus king's claw shadow is pulsing, and the meteorite virus source alien experiment is locked. She screamed and her legs weakened, the cabin is corroded. The 397 lock fails, the nest is lifted into the sky, and the truth is swallowed up. Despair surged in the cabin, and the survivors stared in the mud with eyes wide open, shouting, "Fake liftoff." Virus King B3's deep cabin laughed ferociously, the meteorite whipped the cabin to pieces, and the time jelly restarted the cycle of starvation and death. The 5th party laughed ferociously and grabbed the rocket boxes to press them to the bottom of the cabin. The smell of gunpowder filled their noses. His hands were hot, and the strong man in the lead roared, "Lin Fan is dead. I'll blast the oxygen chamber with a rocket, and I'll be full forever." The iron rod smashed against the capsule, making a loud cracking sound. The green liquid purified water fountain stuck to the shoes and smelled bad. The biscuits were crushed and juice overflowed, and the crowd pushed and trampled and wailed like a tide of corpses. Lin Fan stood in the center of the cabin and predicted in his mind that the blood thunder would explode into a sea of fire. The virus king's true form's red-eye claws penetrated the cabin wall, the black shadow jelly distorted time, the meteorite smashed the window and exploded into a crater, the hot mist evaporated, and the truth about the alien experiment was fully revealed. The 2050 meteorite was not a natural disaster, but the alien virus's nest. The human fortress was full of traps, and the time curse locked the soul into eternal reincarnation. His heart was pinched by iron pincers, his eyes were as cold as blades, and he looked coldly at the chaos. Everyone was taunting and shouting, "Death to the leader of the reincarnation ghosts. Even the god of silence will destroy his mother's nest and grab supplies to save himself. If you want to rise, you first suppress the bottom," and the cabin body trembles violently. Deep in the brood of B3, a low and sinister laugh echoed like thunder through the brain. The reincarnator, the final trial, the source of the alien virus is accompanying him. The meteorite smashed the cabin, and the curse restarted and swallowed 180 souls. The green liquid corroded the bulkhead and seeped into the seams, cold and sticky to the skin. The claw shadow and the red eye exploded, and the true form of the virus king appeared. The 10-meter mountain of carrion moved, the 1,000-clawed whip simmered in the air and arced, the red-eyed lock Lin Fan sprayed hot breath and putrid smell on his face like 1,000 corpses exploding, the meteorite fire tail wiped the window, the heat wave burned the air and scorched the lungs. Party 5 roared and jumped on the rocket, "Death to the king. I blow up the cabin and escape." Qin Feng crawled into a pool of blood with one arm and swung his bayonet into the air, while Bai Ning's shotgun jammed and burst into tears. "Gods, are all dead?" The broken screen of Mu Xue's console flashed red alerts. "The fusion of the brood is 99%, time buzzes to lock the soul." Everyone knelt in despair and trembled, the end of the world. The still god buries the brood, the alien truth is dead. Lin Fan roared and calmed down, and his trump card exploded at its peak. Time froze the world instantly, and everyone stared in the frozen posture without realizing it. The virus king's 1,000 claws were frozen in the sky, and his red eyes were stagnant. His figure teleported and slashed with lightning, and the fire axe blade reflected the blue light and cold light. Qin Feng's frozen posture with one arm half raised, blood and tears gathering, Bai Ning's embracing posture with trembling lips slightly open, Mu Xue's knocking posture with frozen fingers and the screen flashing, Wu Dang's fighting posture with a ferocious smile. Lin Fan's axe stabbed deep into his heart, the red crystal cracked and buzzed like thunder, the green liquid blood mist imploded and the carrion mountain collapsed into the sky. The virus king's red eyes were bulging and lifeless, and pieces of his body rained down and stuck to the bulkhead in red and black mud. At the moment when the lockdown was lifted and revived, the dead silence in the cabin turned to tremors and roars. Everyone's eyes widened with trembling voices and they worshipped, "Stand still, the frozen world slaughters the mother's nest." 1,000 claws are instantly shattered, and the divine axe locks the soul core. Qin Feng stood on the ground with one arm and knelt down in a pool of blood. His broken leg burned in pain but burst into tears and shouted, "The peak of the king's immortal skills. I have broken 2 limbs at the peak, the virus king is dead, loyal to the sky." Bai Ning pounced on the hot kiss with bloody lips and trembled, "God is still and breaks the curse. Love is heartbreaking, new family is forever, reincarnation is over." Mu Xue's eyes expanded and she picked up the screen fragments and knocked wildly, the green light on the console flashed, the brood was destroyed, the alien truth was unlocked, the scroll was fully opened, the red and blue light dance, the 2050 meteorite alien experiment dropped the virus brood, the global fortress time curse locked the human experiment, predicted that the space capsule would break through and launch into a new dimension. She screamed and worshipped, her legs softened and she knelt down, the god of reincarnation has revealed the truth. B3's heart is broken, 397 is locked forever, and it lifts off unimpeded. The 5 members of the 5th party were frozen in a frozen position to grab the rockets, and their hands were stiff. The leader of the strong man stared wide-eyed and trembled. God of stillness, kill the king instantly. I grabbed it wrong, God forgive me. Lin Fan glanced coldly, and the revolver exploded in the red mist between his eyebrows. His brains splashed on the wall, hot and sticky. He smashed the remaining 4 throat bones with an axe, and blood spurted out. He shouted coldly, kill the traitor. The new member of the team stared, trembled, and shouted, Wang Shafa is decisive. The human dog will be destroyed instantly, and the divine material will be loyal forever. The 180 survivors knelt down and divided the biscuits overflowing with oil and burst into tears. The golden soup is immortal. The king of stillness has a new home, and I worship. The rocket box is solid, the clean cabin of the medical green liquid atomizer is smelly and refreshing, the silver light of the radiation coat is cooling and relaxing, and the vitamin capsules are buzzing and shining with hope. The cabin is stable and soars into the sky, the engine roars softly, the thunderstorm clouds outside the window tear apart the golden dawn, the tail of the meteorite fire retreats into black spots, the ruined city shrinks into a candle, and the blue arc of the earth curves as beautifully as a dream. Lin Fan stood in the cabin and reviewed countless rounds of blood seas, the first round of starving to death in the ruins, hot blood spurting from the throat, and the corpse's stench lingering forever, the second round of Lu Ting's rocket burning the camp, the fire tongue scorching the skin, the third round of tentacle whips shattering bones and blue electricity burning the lungs, the fourth round of static awakening for 20 seconds to kill the king, precognition fully unlocking the secret, for key 397 activating the blue grid to kill thousands of corpses, teleporting axes to kill Lu Ting himself, and leading 180 forces to lift off to break the initial curse. The pinnacle of abilities is made of iron, stillness and frozen world teleportation, foreseeing blood and thunder to lock the soul, and fanatically paying homage to the status of the Doomsday King. Every time he dies, he is 10 times stronger, and he grows like a phoenix from nirvana. Bai Ning hugged her warm arms and whispered, God. Countless smiling faces. I love your soul of reincarnation and will always be with Sinwei. Qin Feng beat his chest with one arm and shed tears of blood, Wang Nianxian. I am a witness, and my severed limbs prove my loyalty for the whole life. Mu Xue's projection scroll was fully opened and her eyes were worshipped. The alien experiment is dead. The source of the virus is destroyed, the space capsule locks its new home, and the time curse is extinguished. But the suspense is hanging in the air, the blue light pulsation in the new dimension becomes stronger, the nebula vortex outside the cabin faintly smiles, the alien mothership trace is locked in the thermal strafing test, and the foreknowledge flashes weak blood thunder. The final trial is not over, the new virus mutation is lurking in the capsule. Lin Fan's eyes were fierce and he promised to win over the crowd, break the curse and lift off, build a new home forever. Reveal the truth about aliens and protect immortality. The crowd roared in worship of the seismic cabin, still God eternal king. The new dimension is invincible, salute. The oxygen chamber in the cabin buzzed as warm as a mother, Bai Ning's cheeks are sticky with blood, Qin Feng salutes the one-armed iron, Mu Xue knocks on the screen with a green light forever, 180 hungry ghosts chew cakes and loyal loyalists divide their labors to survive, the rocket ballast rocket tower prepares for war, a new chapter begins, the reincarnation king of Doomsday, and he will continue to survive against the odds. Lu Ting's remnants counterattacked. The rocket network in the corridor whizzed, and the enemy soldier dragged a rocket launcher with a motorcycle and laughed hoarsely, Lin Fan. Tingzhu B3 virus protector, burn your mind. The shock wave of the explosion kicked up ashes and choked his lungs like fire. The newcomer coughed up blood and knelt in despair, the remaining party has 50 rockets. Is the fortress overwhelmed? Qin Feng jumped over the door with blood on one arm, swinging his bayonet like a windmill, rifle belts swept the motorcycle, exploded into a mountain of corpses, and screamed with rotten flesh, he thundered. The flames of the ruins in the Earth's rearview mirror gradually faded away, and the nebula vortex hit the face with blue electricity and the protective cabin. A faint alien whisper echoed, "Trialist, the new source is coming." Lin Fan clenched his axe and was stained with blood, the corner of his mouth curled up coldly, feeling overwhelming, the end of reincarnation, the slaughter of the new world.